Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Now, welcome back. It's a football special on the show this evening. It's a Paddy Power special with thanks to Paddy's week-long session, a monster rollover of betting specials just for Ireland. For information on responsible gambling, you can visit gamblingcare.ie or dunlewey.net, dunlewey.net. Now, very happy to say we have a three-time Premier League winner, four-time FA Cup winner, amongst other things. Ray Parlour with us. Ray, how you doing?
How you doing, guys? How are you?
Yeah, good. Great to have you with us. So lots to talk about in the world of football at the moment. Are you missing being at games, or are you getting along to a few games as a media type? Yeah,
I was lucky to go the weekend. I went to Luton v Preston, and there was 2,000 fans there, and it was a really good atmosphere. It was great to be back in the stadium with fans, and you could see the excitement before the game. It's a situation where it was unbelievable, really. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to obviously being back there. And obviously going to games very soon.
And in normal times, they feel like a long time ago now, would you go to the Emirates a lot? What would be your matches of choice?
I would always go to the Arsenal. I'll probably go Arsenal every home game if I can. So I don't miss many home games, a couple of away games here and there. But yeah, I do enjoy a Saturday as well. At the moment, obviously, Arsenal in the Europa League. So at home, they're playing a lot on a Sunday, which is ideal for me. So I can go to a game on Saturday and Sunday, which is brilliant because obviously the ex-pros, you can't play anymore, but you love watching it still.
Do you ever find it difficult to watch it? Do you get a twitch in your foot and a tapping and, Jesus, I just want to be out there so much, or is generally that's long in the past now?
No, you do miss it. You do miss the buzz. Look, it's a little bit different in this stage at the moment because there's no fans. You do get the real buzz when you're walking out of that stadium and the fans are there, and look, even away from home you get a buzz still. You see the little pocket of away fans, but you know places like Anfield and Old Trafford, it's a joy come true for me, a dream come true, sorry, for me as a player to walk out in front of plenty of fans and the atmosphere. Look, you get a bit of stick as well, which is all part of the fun, but yeah, you do miss it definitely.
Because you seemed, and I could be totally wrong because you can misread people from afar, obviously, but you seemed like a player who enjoyed his football, who really enjoyed the buzz, who didn't feel overly weighed down by the pressure of the thing or the media or the abuse from the fans. You seemed to accept the whole package and really enjoy it.
Well, that's the most important thing, if you can handle pressure. And obviously, if you're playing for a big side, which we was, not so much now, but, in those days we were, and trying to win trophies, you can't handle. You've got to be able to handle pressure. You know, pressure is every single game. It's the same for teams in relegation battles as well. You've got to be able to handle big situations when you need to win a game. You've got to be calm. You've got to be, know exactly what your job is as a player, and do it. And if you do your job and you've got 11 players or 10 players around you doing the same job as you and doing their jobs, usually you've got a chance of winning a game. So yeah. Of course, you get stick. Everybody gets stick. As long as it's banter and a bit of fun, it's no problem whatsoever. But yeah, I seem to really enjoy the big games, and lucky enough, Arsene Wenger picked me for quite a few of them.
Yeah, he did. I mean, there were some big names, obviously, around your time. Some very glamorous players, some phenomenal players, some of the best players Arsenal and the Premier League have ever seen. And in the midst of it all, there you were, and Wenger really liked you. I mean, he picked you. I think are you still the record Premier League holder, or you're there or thereabouts? So even in the midst of an era where you were very successful, where new players were arriving, Overmars leaves, Perez comes in, there was plenty of turnover, the back four changed. There was something about Ray Parlour that Arsene Wenger quite liked. What was that, I wonder?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he done a forward in my book, and he said, I didn't even realise he had the appearance record. So he wants to thank me for picking him every week. So, yeah, I mean, we had a good relationship. I think he knew what I could give the team. Because it ain't about individuals, it's about the team every single week. You've got people who can score goals, you've got people who are going to defend the goal, you've got people who win the ball back. I was probably in that category. But yeah, we had a really good team ethic. I was pretty good around the dressing room as well. I mean, I was a bit of fun behind the scenes, and the lads loved it. The foreign guys really embraced that. So I think, I just had a really good relationship with Arsene Wenger. I wasn't injured too often either, which that is so important in a footballer, because once you get in your stride and you're playing week in, week out, if you have a bad game, you could get left out, but you've got to make sure every game you have a 7 or 8 out of 10 and you'd be playing the following week. So I was lucky in that respect. I didn't get too many injuries either.
And Ray, was Wenger the type who'd pull you into the office for a chat, who'd know your parents' names and know your family's name? Or like, was he involved in your life outside of football, or was he more of a keep a distance type?
No, he was. If you had any problems, you could go and see Arsene Wenger. He was very good like that. I think the French guys, especially, because they looked at him as a father figure. Patrick Vieira, Robert Perez, and people like that at the club at the time. Thierry as well. So yeah, I mean, he had a really good. He was a really nice man as well. As much as a great manager, he was a nice man. He understood people's problems at times, and I think he was just a genuinely nice guy. And he didn't like a lot of confrontation. He didn't like when people were going wrong, or you're left out, you want to go and see the manager, why but you left me out. He didn't like all that sort of side of it. But if you had any problems, he was the one who could give you the best advice, maybe to solve them. Yes,
he does seem like a wise old soul. Even when he was younger, exactly. I suspect he was that type. I could imagine good advice coming from Wenger. Did he ever help you out with anything and you thought, ooh, yeah, it was great to be able to rely on him then?
Really, I mean, after I got divorced, he probably said, you should have got a better solicitor. But, but he was always a nice guy. I mean, if you had any sort of problems, we're human beings at the end of the day. I know you're a football player, but you get your problems family-wise as well. And, if any guys had a bit of a problem, they'd always ask for the players would ask each other advice as well, and it was nice the players could bounce off each other. But obviously, the manager was a very important figure. If you had to have a day off or something, and you would go and see him, say, "Look, boss, this is the situation," and he'd try and help you out as much as he could. Which is I think most players who played under Arsene Wenger, when they left, would have a bad word to say about him. Even if he didn't play you week in, week out, you always left in a nice sort of way. And that's credit to Arsene Wenger.
If there's two parts to the Wenger era, obviously there's that first initial part, which is outrageously successful. And goodness me, all of the signings were so brilliant and he seemed just ahead of his time, be it diet or even style of football. And then the second half, it seemed to wilt by the standards he had set. Now, it's tricky for you to answer because you weren't really there for the second part of his tenure. But what was strange was that, there were constant problems. The back four couldn't get sorted out. And, Wenger, I knew the value of a great back four. He inherited a great one and he put together another great one. So you kind of wondered why that wasn't a priority for him in the same way, or why he couldn't crack that one. And then the other thing, Ray, was that, the teams you played on played such brilliant football, be it Henry and Ashley Cole and Pires causing havoc and, beautiful symmetrical passing, AstroTurf style football. And even that seemed to kind of go. Could you make sense of that when you were looking in as a former player as to how this guy with this magical touch had somehow, I don't want to say lost it, that's the wrong phrase, but something wasn't right?
Well, certainly, investment is so important. At that time when I was playing, he knew the market in France. He picks up some unbelievable bargains. If you look at the transfer fees they paid, I mean, Vieira, 3.5 million maximum. Anelka at the time, 500,000. Perez was cheap, 4 or 5 million. Overmars, 5 million. So he knew that sort of market. And I think going forward, it was a lot of the other clubs found out about the market, and suddenly you're competing with different teams then. And I don't know what the budget was like at Arsenal. I didn't see that at the time. But one thing for me, which was missing for my teams, is when we had a problem, the players used to sort it out big time. I mean, we used to have meetings on our own and say, what was you doing? What was you doing? And he sometimes started the meeting and we'll have a big argument. Criticism is no problem when it's structured. And, because it's all about winning games. Our livelihood at stake. It's trophies to win. So if someone's at fault, you sometimes stand up and say, look, it was my fault. It won't happen again. And you get on with it. And I don't think they've got them sort of characters now. If you wasn't doing your job in my era, you get told straight away on the pitch as well. You wouldn't look at the manager to say, what do we do? You sort it out yourselves. And, you had good leaders there. You had Martin Keown, you had Tony Adams behind me. You had Patrick Vieira in central midfield. And, you pull people into positions. If he was under the cosh, down my side, I'll say, right, OK, I'm going to sit in front of Lee Dixon. Usually it's common sense to do that as a player. But I look at it now, and I don't think they sort problems out quick enough. Before you know it, you're 2-0 down. And then you can't get back in the game. So I think the lack of leaders, and I'm not just saying Arsenal, I'm talking about across the ball sometimes, if you look at certain teams, that is lacking a little bit now.
Well, however bad they got under Wenger, they feel a whole lot worse now at the moment. Arsenal feel a very long way away from former glory. So they're 15th, 5 points off relegation. Burnley obviously won at the Emirates. That's a 4th consecutive home league defeat, first time since 1959. You know, these are scary records to be breaking. So what's going on? What's the word? It seems like an unhappy camp right now.
Yeah, it does indeed. You know, I'm not changing the dressing room area. I don't know what the characters are in there to try and sort it out. As I said before, you need certain players to say, look, come on, we've got to do better. You know, you look at the skipper, Aubameyang. Yeah, look, he's off form at the moment. We know what he can do. He's a superb player. But I always like someone at the back to be skipper. I really do. And probably for me, I would highlight someone, you know, in Europe, or someone who's been a leader in their team. You know, it might not be great on the ball, but he can organise people, and that's what I'd look at in January. I think they're missing someone who, you know, he's a 6 or 7 out of 10 every week, but he's a leader, and he can organise people around him to make sure you don't concede too many goals. But yeah, it is a worry, I'm sure. Someone asked me the question the other day: can they get relegated? I said, well, probably not. But then you look at Leicester winning the league 5,000 to 1, and you know they won it, so they can get relegated if they don't start picking up points and start turning it around. Then there's a real problem there. But they've got to sort it out themselves. And I'm sure the manager does get the blame. Of course he does, because he's the manager. He picks a team, he picks the tactics. But sometimes the players have got to look at themselves as well. And I always look at the players when they walk off that pitch at the end of the game. You know, do they look in their mirror after and say, do you know what? I could have done 15% more today, or 20% more. And if you've got 7 players thinking that, then there's a problem. Because if they did do that, you'll probably win the game. So I think the players, and soon he's got to make a big decision whether, you know, he puts a few youngsters in and leaves the more experienced players out because they're not doing it for him at the moment, and give Willock an opportunity, and give, you know, guys who are on the verge of being in the first team, who play in the Europa League, but, you know, give them an opportunity to play.
The other worry is when the phrase "lost the dressing room" starts creeping out in the media. You never like to see that. David Luiz's representatives have come out in the last few days and strongly denied the reports that Luiz and Arteta are no longer speaking. And, you know, we're on the outside, we don't know, and yet there's obviously a worry. There's no smoke without fire, and you kind of wonder what's going on there. I mean, Arteta's under pressure. Like, do you think he's under pressure for his job in the short term? Is that how serious this has become?
I wouldn't say. I don't think Arsenal are a second club. Look, I'm sure there's despair out there at the moment for the Arsenal fans. You hear them after, you know, another defeat. What are we doing, and where are we sitting in the league? We was hoping, you know, after the FA Cup win last season, that would give them a massive lift and confidence, belief to go forward and be pushing for that top 4. At the moment, they'll be, you know, they're pushing for halfway if they start getting the results to turn around. So that is a problem. It does worry me. Dressing rooms are so important. And I think, again, I'll go back to my era. I mean, George Graham was the most important person when I got into the team. It wasn't to do with any players, but now the players are most important. You know, they're bigger than the manager. The wages they're on, and you can't shout at players now or tell you what you think, because you'll have their agent on the phone speaking to you. So times have changed, and you've got to be able to deal with that. And Mikel Arteta, obviously, he's been around good people, Pep Guardiola, Arsene Wenger, he played under. He knows as a player, the dressing room area is so important because he's been in dressing rooms himself. So if there is a problem, he has to deal with it very quickly. And whether it's individual or collectively as a group, you have to deal with it very, very quickly. Because if it does get out of control, the only person to lose their job is not the players, because they're on contracts and, you know, you can't get rid of players. It's the manager straight away. And so hopefully he can turn that around and make sure, you know, he sorts that out very quickly.
Yeah, it's amazing how that power balance has shifted with players and
the
managers.
Players have got all the power.
Yeah.
Players have got so much power now. Again, I go back to my area. It was the manager had the power, the club had the power, but now it's totally shifted to the other way.
Yeah, like what are you going to do? Find someone? They don't care. So Southampton tomorrow. That suddenly looks far trickier than it might have at the start of the season. You know, it's funny you say there Arsenal aren't a sacking club. There are parallels with Manchester United, the Ferguson era, and Arsenal, the Wenger era. Manchester United, you know, told the world we're not a sacking club, and of course when you have Alex Ferguson, you're definitely not a sacking club. Why would you be? But you quickly get into, you know, 2 years in, crisis. Before you know it, you're onto is that our 3rd, 4th manager? And, you know, Emery got 16 months. Arteta's into 12 months now, you know. Would you bank on him getting to 18? It suddenly becomes really tricky. Where are the owners in all of this, Ray? Are they unpopular with the fans, I would presume, the Kroenke family, are they?
Well, yeah, they're trying to turn it around. I think the son now, Josh, is getting involved and trying to, you know, build bridges with the fans, which is very important. You know, you've got to be able to respect. You know, you look at Chelsea with Abramovich and look at Man City with their owners now, and you know, they just probably look at it and say, you know, we need a bigger budget if we want to challenge. But it's tougher now. I mean, if you again, I go back to my era. It was probably only Arsenal, Manchester United who probably could win the league. You know, Liverpool wasn't as good as they were. Manchester City wasn't even in the league at that time. So, you know, times have changed again. Lots of people thrown money at clubs and said, right, okay, we're going to gamble. The most important thing, you get your right manager. You've seen that over the years. Jurgen Klopp now. You know, the first 2 seasons, he wasn't very successful, but they knew they had someone who could really build the club and go forward. And they said, right, okay, what do you need? Van Dijk, 75 million, there you go. Now we need a goalkeeper. Right, there you go, 60 million for that. And Man City have been the same as well. So I think the supporters are waiting for that to happen for Arsenal as well. You know, they see how much money's worth. They see how much money the Kroenkes are worth and think, well, where's the investment in our club? And that's probably where the difference is with the supporters and the owners. But as I said before, at the moment, there's no fans. And whether that's helping or not, I don't know. Because you know what it's like. I think in the end, Arsene Wenger was sacked because no fans were turning up at the stadium in the end. They had enough of the Arsene Wenger era. And I was going to the games, it was half empty. And the board had to make a big decision to say, right, this is not right. You know, our stadium is half empty. They don't want the manager there. We have to make a decision. So whether the fans will turn up now with how they're playing, I don't know. You know, they can't turn up at the moment, so maybe it's a blessing in disguise for Mikel Arteta.
I'd say it was at full time at the weekend. I'd say Arteta was damn glad they weren't there.
Especially 4 defeats this year at the Emirates. I mean, that's not known. It's usually they're pretty good at home, pretty strong.
Yeah. And
away from home they struggle, but it's been the other way around this year.
And so, like, to be fair to him, I mean, 12 months is not much time in the job either, you know, but it's a results business. Do you like what he's trying to do with the team? Like, tactically, are you seeing signs of, well, I like that, and given time, this is going to work? Or is the jury still a little bit out in your head?
Well, I think Partey was a great signing. We haven't seen the best. Obviously, he hasn't been playing. He's been injured here and there. I want to see him with a run of games in that midfield area, because one place where you've got to be strong. You've got to be strong in that central midfield area. And you've got to be mobile. And I don't think we've got players who are mobile enough. You know, Xhaka's not mobile. Ceballos, when he comes in, he's one-paced, and you're probably not quite easy to mark, if I'm being honest with you. He's good on the ball. He's a good passer, but you could run past him no problem if I was a midfielder. So I need that. You need that little bit more strength in midfield. He's been, you know, obviously he's tinkered with the back three and obviously back four at times. Back three looked like he was going, well, we ain't creating enough chances. So I went with a back four, obviously with another attacker going forward. But he's still learning players, and he's got to get that right formula and then stick with it. And that is a hard job. You know, once you get that winning mentality back and that belief and confidence, you know, say if they do beat Southampton in midweek, that would give them a massive lift. That's the win they needed. And then they can look at the weekend, which is another difficult game. You know, every single game is difficult in the Premier League. Everton at Goodison, and they just beat Chelsea. So there's no easy games, and you've got to get results. So this is where you've got to stand up and be, you know, you've got to say, right, okay, it's going to be a tough game today. We've got to stand up and make sure we're solid as a team. Everybody knows their jobs, and try and get a result. And at the moment, they're too easy to beat at the moment, Arsenal.
Yeah. Geez, when you lay it out like that, this could be a treacherous week for them. One last Arsenal point. The Mesut Ozil situation looms large as well in the corner. You know, you've got your highest paid player at the club, 350 grand a week, and it's a mess. And already now, because results are starting to go, the mumblings, you know, you're weakened as a manager, so the mumblings are like, well, maybe you should bring Ozil back, and Ozil would improve the team. And like, oh, that's a lot of humble pie to eat, to go back cap in hand to Ozil and say, can we be friends again? What's gone on there? It seemed like for a time that Ozil was part of the plans, and that there was the pay cut dispute around then, and Ozil had some things to say, and now it's just like it's over. It's finito.
Yeah. I don't. Again, we don't know the ins and outs of it. I don't know what his attitude's like in training every single day. I know Mikel Arteta has been picking the youngsters who maybe look like they're training better. It's a big problem again. You look at the dressing room area. Mesut Ozil will be around that dressing room area. And when they're losing games, they'll be talking to other players and saying, well, you know, why not? I should be involved. And suddenly it's a snowball effect, and it could really affect you. So I'm sure that, they've made that decision now that he's not going to play, whether it's right or wrong. When you're having good results, no one looks at who's not playing. So suddenly, when you're having a bad run like Arsenal are having, everybody looks behind the scenes, like, right, what other players have we got? And the first one they're going to look at is Mesut Ozil, because he is a quality player. We know that. But there's a falling out somewhere along the line, and we don't know what the falling out is. It'll all come out probably when he leaves and he explains the situation. But at the moment, it looks like Mikel Arteta will never pick him again. And his contract runs out, obviously, in the summer. So, I don't think he'll ever play again for Arsenal. But I can understand why the mumbles behind the scenes are saying, well, why is Mesut Ozil involved? Because at the moment, creativity is lacking at Arsenal. They're not finding the balls for Aubameyang and Lacazette, and straight away you look at Mesut Ozil to maybe be the man to answer that problem.
Yeah. God, it's messy. Right, we'll park Arsenal.
It's messy. It's definitely messy. Or Lionel Messi, I wouldn't mind him.
Yeah. So, big picture, this is an odd season, isn't it? It's turning into, we're seeing odd results. You're seeing, everything from Liverpool at Villa Park to just, dropping points they wouldn't usually drop. And Spurs have turned it around. It's hard to know where Man City are. There's a flatness about that situation. Aguero is back now, I guess. Manchester United are still sort of teetering. But it is odd. We're seeing results that we haven't seen in the Premier League for a long time from the very top clubs. It's hard to know, is that scheduling? Jurgen Klopp would tell you it is. If it's, the COVID break was just weird and then the schedule is so difficult now. If it's the lack of crowds, I don't know. Do you think the quality is down when you're watching games from the top teams as opposed to the last couple of years? It doesn't feel like we're watching quite the same levels.
Well, certainly defensively, early in the season, it was there was goals flying in everywhere. No expected Villa to score 7 against Liverpool's defence. So defensively, I think it's that the pressure is probably a little bit off the players in games now with no crowd. And when you're through on goal, and it's like a training session now. I know you're playing for 3 points still, but when you're going through on goal and there's crowd there, and suddenly you panic, and you see a lot more missed efforts. It's probably easy to score goals. In recent weeks, it's gone down a little bit. But, I think this league's wide open this year. I really do. I think it could be... I know Leicester won it a couple of years, 3 years ago, and it massive price of 5,001. But I think it's wide open, really. You look at Liverpool, Man City, I think there will be there and thereabouts. But you, as you mentioned there, Spurs, Chelsea, then they just come off a 1-0 defeat against Everton. I think Frank's got a very good squad. He's got a few injuries at the moment. Ziyech has been excellent since he's been a Chelsea player. Then you look at likes of Leicester again, who, Brendan Rodgers has done a wonderful job there to keep going. And then you look at Wolves getting there. West Ham are having a great season. Southampton, who we mentioned just a minute ago. So I think it's a wide open league this year. One thing we're not going to get is what happened last year, where Liverpool ran away with it and the season was over come March time. I think it's going to go down to the last 4 or 5 games, and whoever's in the mix, then it comes into pressure, and knowing you have to win the game. Whether we're going to have crowds back at the end of the season, we'll have to wait and see. But certainly at the moment, this league is wide open, and we do a prediction league every week down a local, and me and Alan Brazil, and we get them wrong every week, and the punters are beating us at the moment. So it just shows you it's a nightmare to pick at the moment scores.
Every time I look at your Twitter feed, you and Alan Brazil are having a drink somewhere. Honestly, the life you two are living.
No, it's good fun, Alan. It's good fun. Obviously, we've gone back into Tier 3 now, so that won't be happening. But he's great. He's great. He's a nice socialiser, Alan. I do get on with him.
I'm sure he is. On the Liverpool thing, so look, they had a great run with injuries for a long time. The last couple of years, the Champions League winning year and the league last year. And Van Dijk goes down. That changes a lot. Alisson's had his moments now. Diogo Jota's going to be out for 2 months. Mane hasn't scored in 8 games, I think, which for him is, constitutes famine territory. But there's a kind of fatigue maybe about things as well. And the thing that jumps out, Ray, is Jurgen Klopp doesn't seem to be enjoying life quite as much as he was in previous years. There's a strain there, the Des Kelly interview and all that kind of stuff. Maybe it's the price of success, that it's more difficult to stay on top than to get there. But there's just something not quite humming at Liverpool.
Well, I think everybody expects Liverpool to win week in, week out. I mean, the record at home is unbelievable. They set their standards so high that when they drop under that, there's always going to be question marks. You can't play like that every single week, and it's impossible to do that as a player, as a team. You're going to have your blips in the season. I know last year it was an amazing season. They only lost one game to Watford. But, this season, there's a little bit more pressure on you because you've got to retain the title now. You've had that high of winning it. Now, suddenly, every team wants to try and beat you even more now, and can they retain the title? So there's a little bit more pressure on you as well. They've had their injuries, as you mentioned there. Van Dijk is obviously a big player for Liverpool, not just for his leadership qualities, but the people around him seem to improve as well. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Robertson at left back, and whoever's playing alongside, whether it's Gomez, Matip. Fabinho have done a good job, to be fair, who sat in there. Jota's going to be a massive miss, 6 to 8 weeks out. So, you get problems when you don't expect it, and you've got to deal with that. But you can't be moaning, really. I mean, if you're a top side, if you're Man City, Liverpool, and you look at their squads they've got, the bench they've got, and then you look at other teams like West Bromwich Albion, Fulham, and them sort of the guys. I mean, their squads are bare. They lose 2 or 3 key players, they're in trouble. So I think you just got to get on with it. But I like to see it from an outsider because now it makes it a lot more interesting. And we say Liverpool struggling. Look at the league table; they're still doing okay for me. Yeah. I mean, they're only a point behind, and it's still going okay for them. So, once they start clicking into gear again, and look, I don't know how long Van Dijk's out and people are out, but I'm sure Liverpool will be back to winning games. And it's been a tricky game this weekend, though. I'm looking forward to that one, Liverpool Spurs this weekend. How they set up and, who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you do suspect Liverpool will click into gear at some stage. A final one then on Spurs. Like, it really did feel like Mourinho was yesterday's man for a while. It looked like the I don't know what, the je ne sais quoi about Mourinho had gone. There was a spark missing. And, I mean, look, COVID has been no fun for anyone. It came at a good time for Spurs if you're just focusing on the football side of things, in that Kane was out, Son was out, they were in a bad place. He's turned things around, Mourinho, in a big way.
Absolutely, yeah, he has. I mean, the players are playing for him. You can see the energy levels. I think Højbjerg's been a great signing for them. I think they've been missing a player like him for quite a few years, who just sits in that midfield, breaks things up, gives it to the better players. Harry Kane is playing a different role now. He's dropping off, and he's very intelligent on the ball, Harry. He can score a goal as well, we know that. I don't want to see him not getting in the box and scoring the goals like he used to, but he's slightly a little bit different. You've got Son, who's on fire at the moment, who's been excellent. Good partnership, them two. But for me, it's the defensive unit. It's how they defend games now. If you look at them against Manchester City, at the Tottenham Stadium, they sat back. They're playing a different way now. They hit you on the break. They've got a lot of pace going forward. And when Harry picks the ball up in good area, the pass is going to be 30 yards in front of Son, and he's got a chance one-on-one on the goalkeeper. So that's the beauty of Harry Kane being in there, and he can do that sort of job. But defensively, they're standing games, and then they're hitting you on the break. They've done it against Chelsea. I know they didn't win that game, and it was a bit of a stalemate in the second half. But to go to Stamford Bridge and get a point, that's a good point for Spurs on their road. So, they're playing a different way, and I think they're doing exactly the same at the weekend. They let Liverpool have the ball, and Liverpool will expect to go forward and try and win the game, and then Tottenham will hit them on the break. And it's going to be an intriguing game to see how managers see that and who comes out on top. But certainly defensively, they'll be an excellent Spurs. Yeah.
I think Lampard almost knew. He's like, I know what you're about here, Jose. I'm not falling for it. So they almost cancelled each other out. By the way, you keep saying the weekend. This match is on tomorrow. I don't want you to miss this match tomorrow. Spurs-Liverpool tomorrow.
Oh, is it tomorrow? Yeah,
yes.
I can't wait. I definitely. That's one thing about being in Tier 3 now and how they stagger the games. You can more or less watch every game.
Every day,
it's not good. It's not good if your kids want to do something. No, I've got to watch this football. So you can watch football all day if you want. And obviously, Premier League's always an exciting league anyway. There's always ups and downs in for all the teams, and that's why it's such an exciting league to watch.
Certainly is this year. Listen,
definitely.
You've got the Christmas decorations up. Have a very nice couple of weeks. Enjoy yourself. Ray Parlour, thanks so much. Good to chat to you.
Cheers, guys.
Nice
to speak to you.
Yeah, likewise. Take it easy. Ray Parlour there. All of this evening's show is to celebrate Paddy Power's week-long session. We're giving away 12 Paddy Power hampers. Each one includes chocolate, socks, a hoodie, all sorts of goodies. To be in with a chance of winning, just identify our mystery voice who says, once the lights go on, Nathan Murphy is a different animal.
As soon as the music for the intro is finished, he literally turns into another person.
If you know who that is, text your name and answer. 53106, 30 cents. We'll contact you later today. Remember, you must be over 18 years of age, all with thanks to Paddy's week-long session. For information on responsible gambling, you can visit gamblingcare.ie or dunlewy.net. That's DUNLEWEY.net. OTB.net for all the information you need.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. New normal, same old football. Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Things are going to be a little bit different this year, Tess.
It's going to be a quiet one, Tomo.
Not so fast, lads. I've got us a job. Paddy Power want us to do the new Christmas advert. Paddy Power.
What?
How's it come to this?
All the sport in the telly this Christmas is the real gift.
Sport is the gift that keeps on giving.
And you can make the most of all that sport with Paddy Power.
How embarrassing.
Totally worth it for this.
What have we become?
Chin up, 'tis the season to be jolly. Merry Christmas, lads.
Dear, oh dear. How has it come to this? Matt Le Tissier, hello.
Good afternoon.
The good news is I'm told there's even more of those coming your way on the Paddy Power social channels, and people can check them out. For more information on responsible gambling, do visit gamblingcare.ie or dunlewy.net. So there's more coming our way.
Yes, we had a lot of fun filming the Christmas ad, but we've also done a few more episodes of the pundits, which we did a couple of months back, and they went down very well. Very funny, and I think personally, having filmed them, I think this next lot are even funnier than the last lot.
So, I mean, look, there's an elephant in the room there. How long were you on Soccer Saturday?
15 years.
15. And total shock this summer when you got the news?
Yeah, a little bit of a shock. But, you know, all good things come to an end, and these things happen for a reason. And, you know, that's just part of life. You know, I had a good innings of 15 years and never would have thought that when I first started. So, yeah, onwards and upwards.
I mean, you're in two brutal worlds, football and media. They're both ruthless, and the end is never pretty.
That's very true. That's very true. But I've also never, ever got carried away with my position in either. Yeah,
I mean, you had a really enjoyable run. That show at its peak seemed to really capture the imagination. You guys obviously had a great chemistry. And also, I think, and it's far less so the case today, the 3 o'clock games, there were actually quite a few of them, and they were generally pretty good, so people wanted to know what was going on. Frankly, that's just not the case as much anymore.
No, it's been very difficult, I think, for the guys this season on the show, because they don't have, you know, those amounts of 3 o'clock kickoffs in the Premier League. You know, you're only getting one every Saturday afternoon, and then you're looking at the 3 championship games after that. And it's also obviously very difficult when you've got people in different studios trying to knit it all together. So it's been a tough job for Jeff as well.
Because the whole point is that you're within touching distance of each other, and you know it's interaction.
No, that's exactly right. And I think that's what the show was kind of built on. Really, was the camaraderie and the arguments that we would sometimes get into over certain issues in football and certain decisions that we disagreed with. And it was instantaneous. You know, you were in the same studio and you were able to react, and people could see that. And I think that's what people enjoyed.
Yes. And so was media a thing when you retired that you were dead set on doing? Or did you think about management in any great way? Did you just sort of fall into it?
Yeah, I kind of did just fall into it, really. I had no real plans when I retired. I've never really been one for making big long-term plans. You know, I've just gone with the flow throughout my life and seen what comes up. And I think the media thing kind of fell into my lap a little bit. I enjoyed it. I was comfortable with it. And it kind of snowballed, really. And I enjoyed every minute of it.
Which probably makes the next question redundant. If you don't make big plans, I was going to say, what's the plan now? Are you hoping to keep involved and keep doing bits, or are you calling it a day, or what's the thinking?
No, I'm still doing some media work with other TV companies that have the Premier League coverage abroad. So I've done some work with Molloy TV, who cover the Premier League out in Indonesia, and I've also done a couple of matches on Zoom for Malaysian TV as well. So right. It's been interesting. Trying to do punditry on Zoom is a little bit different, but it kind of works, and it also has the benefit of doing it from your living room. Yeah, the commute's a lot better. The jet lag ain't so bad. So, what about the nature of punditry? It does seem to have changed a lot in the last 10, 15, 20 years. The analysis that people want, is of a certain standard. You know, they want cliches are out. They want data-driven points made. They want to be shown stuff they can't see at home. And I think as well the footballing audience is just a lot more educated because there are so many games on. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think the game has gone more and more towards data and statistics, which, you know, has been, I think a lot of that has been good for the game. I think there's some of it that's a little bit irrelevant at times in terms of the statistics. And, you know, there is still, certainly I feel there's still room for being able to watch a football match and say what you feel is happening, as opposed to micro-analysing it and looking at everybody's positions. I still tend to watch football matches from the view of a fan, and I like to be able to do that, and then to pass on my knowledge of things that perhaps the fans might not have spotted during the game.
So there's lots of games coming up, and then obviously we're into the festive period where it goes bananas. So Arsenal against Southampton tomorrow catches the eye. We just had Ray Parlour on, and obviously Arsenal are not in a great place. They're in 15th. They're feeling a little bit vulnerable. The Southampton thing this year has really taken off and turned around. For a time over the weekend, they were in 3rd. They're currently in 4th. Ralph Hasenhüttl seems to be doing a phenomenal job. I mean, take you back to 9-0 against Leicester last year. This was not on the card, so you'll need to explain what's happened here. I've seen the change in results, but in terms of what Hasenhüttl has done with the team, I mean, he looked like dead man walking for a start.
Yeah, I think many a club would probably have got shot of their manager after a result like that. But the great thing about the board at Southampton is they didn't panic. They still believed in their manager, and long term, you know, it's proved to be the right decision. I think he's turned things around incredibly. The players have to take a lot of credit as well. They've taken on board his ideas. They've found a formation that suits the players that he's got, and everybody seems to know what their job is in that formation, and it causes teams a lot of problems, you know. But football is cyclical, and at some point, you know, teams will work out a way to play against that system, and you'll have to change again, because that's what happens in football. It evolves.
And what is the current system that's serving them so
well? So they've played with a back four. They've got two solid midfielders in James Ward-Prowse and Oriol Romeo, who have been outstanding this season, a pair of them. And then the two wide men tend to drift inside a little bit. And it's almost like a 4-2-2-2 formation that Ralph likes to call it. And the players just play that formation well, but they also have an incredible work rate and a drive and a desire to go and hunt down the ball when they lose it. And this season so far, it's worked incredibly well.
Ward-Prowse's delivery is quite something as well.
Yeah, he's been outstanding. I mean, we've known for many years that his delivery from set pieces is good. He's taken it up a notch with the amount of goals that he's now scoring from direct free kicks. I think he always had that potential when you saw the way that he can deliver a ball, and he's managed to work that in. But, you know, it's only the last probably 3 years or so that he's really established himself as a first-team regular at Southampton. You know, he was kind of in and out the team for quite a few years. You know, a couple of the managers came in, you know, didn't really have that belief in him. But I think his game has gone up a level since Ralph Hasenhüttl came to the club, and I think Ralph has had a big impact on that, because he's asked things of Prowse that perhaps other managers before didn't, and Prowse has taken it on board, and it's just been phenomenal the way that his game has improved.
Hasenhüttl is the kind of manager where you could watch Match of the Day each week for years on end and have no feel for. You know, he gives very little away, quietly spoken, doesn't lose his temper. Can you give us an insight into what he's like? I'm sure you've maybe heard through the grapevine what his approach is.
Yeah, no, I've met Ralph a number of times, and he's always struck me as a very calm individual, but very driven, very focused. He leaves no stone unturned. His attention to detail is excellent, and I think he also used the period of time in lockdown to actually write a whole book on how he thinks the football club should be run and how each team should play. And you know, he just loves the game of football. He just absorbs himself in the game of football, and I think we're very lucky to have him at Southampton. Right.
And do you mean that literally he's written a book during lockdown on football clubs?
He wrote a book for Southampton Football. It's not a book that's been published, but he wrote quite a detailed book on how he thinks the football club should be run, and how each coach needs to work with the players and the system that they want to be playing. And I haven't seen the book, but I was told about it and was led to believe it was pretty in depth.
Wow. Suddenly feeling what I already knew, which is I wasted my lockdown time by
you and me both
doing not very much. That is very impressive. It must be great for the area. Are you still down in that neck of the woods? Yeah.
Yeah, I am indeed. Yeah. I'm just on the outskirts of Southampton, just outside of a little town called Romsey. And so, it takes me about 25 minutes to get back into the stadium. Okay. And are they, I know Portsmouth are in the area as well, but is that like a one-town club? Southampton are almost the beating heart of it. Is that the nature of a town there? Yeah, very much so. It's 20 miles to Portsmouth, one side of us, and about 25, 30 miles to Bournemouth, the other side. But Portsmouth has always been the big local derby. But Southampton has always been kind of the team to beat down here. Mm. Southampton, for a time, things went very well, and then obviously there was your era, which was very memorable, and then there was a yo-yo thing going on, and there were some good years and some bad periods. It was hard to know on the outside what way it was going to go. Were they going to languish in a Championship or League One type situation? And goodness me, they've turned it around, and they now feel firmly part of the Premier League. That fork in the road, what has dictated, Matt, that they went the right way? Is it an owner or a manager, or what happened that has kind of led them to this stage? Yeah, I think there was a crucial appointment probably of Nigel Adkins, who got us successive promotions, which was just a phenomenal achievement to go from where we were. And yes, we had a pretty big budget. So the Liebherr family came in and injected a fair bit of money into the club. For a club at League One level and in Championship was, a pretty sizable budget to work with. But I thought the job that Nigel Adkins did as a manager to galvanise those players and that squad, I thought was absolutely phenomenal, and he'll be hailed as a hero forever down in these parts of the world. But I think he also had a couple of really key players from that squad that came up from League One. We ended up selling quite a lot of them for quite a lot of money, but Adam Lallana and Ricky Lambert I thought were outstanding. And then you had Morgan Schneidlin patrolling the midfield, and Jose Fonte at the back. And it was a real solid spine to the team, and it was really a great couple of years. Those two back-to-back promotions, I think, will be spoken about amongst our fans for many, many years to come. Right, okay, yeah, because it feels pretty stable now. It feels like the club's in a really strong place. It is pretty stable, It's we've had a couple of relegation scraps, which almost took me back to my time at the football club. But before that, we had a fair number of seasons in a row where we finished in the top 10 and got European football. So. It was a little blip along the way, but Ralph seems to have been putting us back to where we kind of were under Ronald Koeman. Yeah. In your day with those relegation scraps, were they just stress all the way and horrible periods and it was all you could think about, or did you kind of get used to it? I guess you kind of got used to it. It wasn't every season. Sure. I did have a couple of seasons where I finished in the top half, but yeah, there was probably 3 or 4 that were quite nail-biting on the last day of the season, and you could say it was a bit stressful, but I actually quite enjoyed it in a perverse sort of way. We were always kind of the underdogs because we had one of the smallest grounds in the Premier League, but probably the smallest budget in the Premier League. So it was always a bit of an effort to stay up at times. But no, I enjoyed the challenge of it, and those last day escapes were fond memories in the end. Mm. I saw a quote from Xavi, by the way. I presume you've seen this, have you? Have you heard this? I have, yes. Yeah. This is kind of a mad one. This is a couple of years ago, but I was just reading different bits and bobs this morning. No, it was about 10 years ago, actually. Is it 10? Okay. Yeah, I think it was just before the 2010 World Cup it was. Right, okay. Maybe it was. He was 36 when he said it anyway, so maybe. In Catalonia, there used to be a half-hour programme every Monday where they'd show the best goals from the Premier League. Every week, Matt Le Tissier would be on this show. Now, I'm talking outrageous, sickening goals. Our whole house was obsessed with Matt Le Tissier. That's a nice one to have. That's a nice one to have. Beamed across Spain back in the day.
What was it with you in those spectacular goals? I'm sure you're asked about that a lot. Who knows what happens in those moments? You're probably not thinking too consciously a lot of the time.
No, I mean, whenever I was on the football pitch, especially when I was in the final third of the football pitch, my overriding first thought when a ball came anywhere near me is, how can I get myself in a position to shoot? So I was always obsessed with trying to score goals and trying to create goals. So I got myself into positions. I played in a position where it allowed me to be kind of 25, 30 yards from goal in a bit of space. And I had the ability to shoot pretty accurately with quite a lot of power from distance. So yeah, that's probably why I had probably a bigger share of my goals from outside the box than most players.
Yeah, I mean, well, they were phenomenal. There was definitely a DVD or a videotape, giving away both our ages here, but it was in our house as well, of all your best goals. And I think, was it Newcastle where you flicked it over a couple of players? There were all these kind of different types of goals. When you look at modern day pitches, modern day tackling, do you suspect you might have enjoyed your football more in the current era, or would the diet and all that kind of miserable stuff would have been a little bit of a straitjacket for you?
Yeah, I mean, the fitness levels might be a little bit different now. But, had I grown up in this era, I probably would have fallen into that and would have had to have gone along with those regimes and did sort my diet out and eat properly and be a bit fitter than I was. However, I don't think, even with the sums of money that are involved now, I'm not sure I would change the era that I played in. I loved it. Right. We played on those muddy pitches. We played with defenders who were looking to give you a bit of a kick and they had a free go because the referee didn't want to get the yellow card out too soon in games. And so you had to put up with all that, and it's character building, and you learn to live with it, and it just makes your achievements all the greater when you have to cope with all that stuff and still be able to, stick the ball in the top corner from 25 yards.
Your penalty record was fairly ridiculous as well. So what was the technique, or what was the thought process?
Again, I was fortunate. I was able to side foot the ball quite powerfully. So that kind of helped in keeping the accuracy of my penalties. So I never went down the middle. I always just picked one side or the other. And I hit the ball nice and firm with the side foot, knowing that, if I've got it somewhere near the corner, the goalkeeper would have to move pretty early to try and stop it. And I also kept my eye on the goalkeeper as long as I could. And sometimes he would move too early, and I was able to change my mind at the last minute and put the ball the other way.
Right, okay. So you would change your mind if you saw the keeper move, and that was obviously very doable.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's something that's probably wouldn't suit everybody. I think you have to be quite flexible in your thinking. And quite calm under pressure, and that's kind of the attributes that I had. So although I picked a corner that I wanted to score in, that would only be my decision made perhaps 95%. I'd keep a little bit open just in case I saw the goalie move that way.
So away from Southampton and their brilliant season at the moment, what are you making of this rather strange Premier League season?
I'm enjoying it. I think it's nice to see different teams up near the top challenge. Southampton even spent a few hours on top of the Premier League this season, which was amazing. And you've got teams like Leicester and West Ham up there. And at the moment, after 11 or 12 games, you've still got Manchester United, Manchester City, Arsenal, all outside the top 7 places in the Premier League. So I think it's good for the Premier League. I think it's nice to have some different names in and around those European places.
Do you think it's down to scheduling, or the top players just wrecked?
I think there's probably a combination of things. I think the bigger teams, obviously with the European football, are going to find it a little bit tougher because they're not going to get that break when the other teams in the Premier League who aren't involved in European football are getting it. So there's definitely an argument for that. I think having no fans in the stadium has probably also affected results somewhat. And I think that's something else that has to be taken into consideration. But I think it's going to be quite a strange season. But, I think it's just been some phenomenal results so far. I mean, who would have thought that Liverpool had gone to Aston Villa and got beaten 7-2? You know, when that kind of result happens, it just kind of makes you think, wow, you know, anything can still happen on a given day. And that's why we love our football so much.
Yeah, the no fans thing is stark. And like sometimes I will flick to the option which gives you the actual sound of the stadium as opposed to the fake crowd noise. Now in the main I watch with fake crowd noise because it's tough going actually without them, but it's worth flicking on from time to time to remind yourself just what it's like for the players, just how soulless it can feel in those stadiums. It can't be very enjoyable. So what effect do you think that's having on results then? You said that's part of it. Like it's hard, you've been there, you know what it's like to have a crowd. What effect is their absence having, do you suspect?
I certainly think that the effect of the crowds would have a difference on the away teams. Simple as that. I mean, back in my day, you'd go to Anfield with, a full stadium there, and you're almost 1-0 down before you start playing. The intimidation factor is there, and some players are just that. I don't think they'll ever admit it, but some players will be more comfortable playing in front of an empty stadium, and I think there are players that have benefited from that. And their performances have gone up a couple of levels from when they're actually playing in front of fans.
Akin to the player who was very good in training and couldn't produce it on match day?
Yeah, I guess a little bit like that. Yeah, I would say so.
You liked crowds?
Loved it. Bigger the crowd, the better. Right. I was a big head.
I'm going to show off in front of these people type attitude?
Yes, that's exactly what it was. I loved entertaining. Not so much show off. I loved entertaining people. I loved doing stuff that drew applause from people and that got them on the edge of their seats, and I just wanted to put a smile on people's faces, really.
And so if a ball came to you and you gave a nice little one-touch flick pass to another player and you heard a murmur of appreciation from the crowd, you were hearing the crowd, you were noticing that, were you? Oh,
for sure, yeah. Any player who says he doesn't listen to the crowd noises is a liar. Okay. You don't always hear the individual stuff, but if as a collective something has happened that's really good and it gets a ripple, you definitely can't ignore that.
Yeah, must be a lovely feeling to be in control of that many people.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say in control of them, but have the ability to put a smile on their faces is something that was pretty special, yeah.
What were the Southampton crowd like when you were playing?
They were always great to me. They really were. I mean, there were other players at the club who would probably say something completely different, who were picked on at times, perhaps, as you get with most football fans. But even, from a really young age of 17 when I made my debut, the crowd were really good to me. And they were one of the reasons why I stayed at Southampton my whole career. I always felt the love from them, and that made an impact on my decision to stay.
Would you have been aware, so they're picking on other players, maybe there's murmurs or boos when that player touches the ball, or maybe you hear some shouts. The other 9, 10, 11 players are generally aware that's going on, are they?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, you do. And that's something that will, again, is kind of character building if you can turn it round. And I played with a few players who did, who weren't the crowd favourites, but by just pure hard work and determination and mental strength, they turn the opinion of the fans around, and that's a lovely thing to see as well.
Who'd be an example of that, who came through it well?
I would say probably Franny Benali, one of my closest mates, would probably be an example of that, because his distribution with the ball wasn't always great, and there was a lot of murmurings when he would slice the ball out of play, but eventually he made up for that through sheer hard work, determination, and those fans knew that every week Franny Benali was on the pitch, he wouldn't leave that pitch without giving his all for that shirt, and they eventually saw that and could live with the mistakes because of that.
Yeah, probably less kind to name names for this question, but you must have seen players who didn't manage to turn around, who almost went under or went into their shells because of it, and totally understandable.
Yeah, no, it would be completely understandable. You have to have a real certain type of mentality to be able to turn that situation around, and it's not for everyone. And that's no criticism. It's that's just the way people are. But yeah, there would be players that won't be able to turn that around and would have to eventually leave the football club and try and have a fresh start somewhere else and hope to get off to a better start and have the crowd on their side.
Yeah,
I don't think the crowd sometimes realises just how much they can influence the standard of play from one of the footballers just by how they react to them.
Right. As in, especially maybe the more creative types, they try something, it doesn't come off, and then they get
yeah, very much so, very much so. And that was one of the good things I had. I had the backing of the crowd, so I never felt like I didn't want to try something, or else I'd get booed, or you know, I always felt like they were on my side, and that's a big thing. And that's kind of, I guess, why I kind of reached the levels that I did in the creativity and the goals that I scored.
Yes, you had license, encouragement even.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly the right way to put it.
Yeah, because sometimes over here, you know, Aidan McGeady, Republic of Ireland International, he's trying things. We're not the most creative team in the world. Often it's, you know, fairly drab football and then ball out to McGeady on the wing, and it's like, well, he's got to try something. And if it doesn't come off, there'd be a degree of...
No, that's exactly right. And you know, the creative players do feel a pressure on them to do that, especially if they're in a minority of one in that team.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, a lot of teams might have 3 or 4 players who can do something a little bit different and create something. But if you've got quite a mundane team and a team of hard-working players, if you've just got the one player who everyone looks to for that flash of inspiration, that's quite a lot to put on his shoulders.
You obviously think as many England caps as a lot of players, fellow players even, not just onlookers, think you should have had. From your observations of England, did that, you know, generation who were full of talent, you know, they didn't seem to express themselves on the international stage as much. The crowd seemed, and the tabloids and the pressure, that seemed to be a thing with English teams for a long time.
Yeah, I think there's probably a combination of things. I think the media played a big part in that, in terms of not really making the players feel that comfortable, and also putting managers under pressure. You know, I think managers felt the pressure not to pick the you know, too many talented players in one team, because, you know, we're England and we work hard and we, you know, we're organised, and it was that kind of mentality really. And it was a shame, because there was a lot of talented players in the 90s and we really should have done better with the talent that we had available.
I wasn't going to ask the most cliched question you can ask Matt Le Tissier, but you sort of mentioned one of the reasons you never left was because of the crowd and you were happy there. The other reason I wasn't going to ask it, I never sense any regret on your part. You seem totally happy with the career you had and fulfilled and enjoyed it, and there's no longing there on your part to wonder what it might have been like in a bigger pond.
No, absolutely not. No, I've always said I've no regrets about my career, and if I had the chance to do it all again, I'd probably pick the same route. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with the way things turned out. Yes, I would have loved to have had more England caps. You know, that's the one thing I look back and perhaps go, yeah, that would have been nice. However, I'm also mature enough to understand that that's not in my court. You know, I did the best I could do. I played the best I could for my team. And if that wasn't good enough for the England manager, then so be it, you know, and that's something that I reconciled quite a long time ago. And you know, I understand it was out of my hands. So it's okay to be disappointed. Sure. But it's not a regret.
You don't have that much control over it. And so it would have been, what, Hoddle territory, maybe a bit of Graham Taylor. Did they ever?
Yeah. So
did they ever chat with you and say, "Look, this is the story, Matt. You're not in because X, Y, and Z," or is it does that communication even happen?
No, not really. I think I had Graham Taylor put me into the first England squad, which I sat on the bench for the game when Alan Shearer made his debut and scored. I didn't get on that day, so I didn't make my debut then until a couple of years later when Terry Venables was manager. And I got a few caps under Terry, and then a couple of caps under Glenn. But both times, you know, I was dropped without any explanation at all, really.
Yeah, it's funny, man. You know, we talked to a bunch of former players on the show, and the standard of man management at times seems very average. You know, that they've experienced that, like, simple conversations like that, just whatever weird way football worked, it was just like, well, son, I'm the boss. You know, I don't owe you an explanation. And I don't know. When you think about it now, it's kind of an odd way of doing things, isn't it?
It is, really. Not even when you're thinking about it now. I remember thinking back then that, you know, you got to be a man about it. Surely you can look someone in the eye and tell them why you're not picking them and why they're not in the squad. But that was the way. It was, he was the boss, and you just took his word for it and got on with it. Simple as that.
Were you a knock on the manager's office type?
No, I never did that. I would be. I think whenever I got dropped, my first thought would be I will just be better in training, and I will go back and do extra training, and I will make sure that the manager sees that I'm still here, and when the time comes and the team have lost a few games in a row and he's under pressure, I was always lucky in that the fans always wanted me in the team. So if I was dropped from the team and we didn't win a couple of games, there was a lot of pressure on the manager to get me back in the team. So I always kind of had that in my favour.
You were, slightly unlucky in the era that we're talking about as well. Like, the quality of English strikers or attacking players then was fairly ridiculous.
Yeah, there was. That's kind of when people say, you should have got more than 8 caps. I think there was quite a few players around that time who you could also look at who were incredibly talented and scored a lot of goals. And again, only got a handful of England caps. But when you're trying to wrestle people like Paul Gascoigne and Teddy Sheringham and Alan Shearer out of the team, you're going to have to be pretty special.
It's true. We could have this same chat with who? Robbie Fowler, Ian Wright.
Absolutely. Les Ferdinand.
Andy Coll. There's quite a few there who were racking up high 20s Premier League goals a season every year.
No, absolutely, and there's some very talented players there in the number 10 position as well. You had the likes of Peter Beardsley, who was a fantastic footballer. It wasn't easy to fight your way in. So I was proud of those 8 caps, but would have loved to have been more. But I could understand to a point why it wasn't. Yeah.
How did we get onto that tangent? Crowds, I think, took us there. Right, yeah. So. Who's going to win this very strange league then without the crowds for a lot of the season to finish up, Matt? How do you see things?
I hope we see a different named winner on the Premier League title this season. I think the more different winners you can get in the Premier League, I think the better the reputation of the league becomes. So
Spurs are about your best bet then, aren't they?
So Spurs would be my best bet at the moment. Obviously, Southampton are only 2 points behind, so that would be even better. Can
Southampton hang on to top 4, 5? Europa League certainly. Is that feels realistic-ish?
At this stage of the season, they've done very well. It can change very quickly. In fact, after 2 games of the season, if you'd have spoken to any Southampton fan, I think most of them would have gone, this is going to be a long season. We could be in for a relegation fight here.
Okay.
Because we lost away at Palace the first game of the season, played very poorly.
Yeah.
And then Tottenham came to our place and smashed 5 past us. So, that was a tricky start. But the games since then, have been, apart from throwing away the 2-goal lead at Man United, it has been incredibly impressive.
Yeah, okay, so that's a polite hold your horses there on Southampton for a minute. So can Spurs hang on? Jose's doing his thing, obviously, and they all seem to be lapping it up, and if Kane and Son stay fit, they'll be tough to beat, but just a sense Liverpool will click, isn't there?
I would imagine so. For Liverpool to have not really hit top gear yet and to only be behind Spurs on goal difference, I think you'd probably have to say Liverpool were still favourites for this season, even without Virgil van Dijk, the problems they've had at centre-back with the injuries, and yet they're still sat in that position, is a pretty cool achievement.
Okay, well listen, we will see how it goes. It's good to have football back, at least in these strange times. Matt Le Tissier, thanks so much. Have a nice Christmas. Enjoy the football.
Lovely, you too.
Cheers. That is Matt Le Tissier with us this evening. Chance to enter our competition now, celebrating Paddy's week-long session. We're giving away 12 Paddy Power hampers. Each one includes chocolate, socks, hoodie, all sorts of goodies to be in with a chance of winning. Just identify our mystery voice who says, once the lights go on, Nathan Murphy is a different animal.
As soon as the music for the intro is finished, he literally turns into another person.
Text your name and answer 53106 for 30 cents and we'll contact you later on today. Remember, you must be over 18 to enter. It's all thanks to Paddy's week-long session. For information on responsible gambling, visit gamblingcare.ie or you can check out as well dunlewey.net, dunlewey.net is the place to go. So Enda's along very shortly with the Paddy Power Half Hour. And then later on, for our football show as part of this evening's special show, Jermaine Pennant is going to be our special guest. We'll chat to him about his career. Interesting to say the least. As a 15-year-old, I'm sure lots of you know and remember, as a 15-year-old he was signed by Arsenal for £2 million. It was a record, made his debut, Arsenal's youngest ever player at the time, and things just didn't quite happen in a host of ways for him. He did obviously play in the Champions League final for Liverpool, but there were plenty of off-the-field troubles as well. So that should be a really interesting chat with Jermaine Pennant coming up later on.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Power Half Hour on OTB Sports. Minimal contact in stadiums. That shouldn't stop the usual suspects from going down. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Right, you're very welcome along to this week's episode of the Paddy Power Half Hour. Every Friday afternoon, normally, we drop some truth bombs on you from about 1:30 on the Paddy Power Half Hour. This week, we're coming at you on a Tuesday because it's the OTB Paddy Power special. It's a full day of it here. We're into the second hour of it, and this is the quality bit of the day, for sure. It's myself and Enda picking winners, but also joining us are Republic of Ireland legend Stephanie Roche and the man himself, Paddy Power. You're both very welcome.
Thank you very much,
Thanks very much, Chair.
Paddy, I was just thinking, it's almost exactly 10 years to the month when, well, it's 10 years and 3 months since the World Cup was on, and I managed to pick 20 successive losing bets every day on the World Cup special. Things have changed. Things have changed a lot. I'll tell you how, because I got Enda, who's managed to pick a lot of winners for us over the last few weeks. So I want to get that out there
you can see, you can just see behind me there, I have a picture of you on the wall, Jared, from that time. You know, everybody in the office got one because you held a record, so congratulations.
Enda, how well are we doing just recently?
Pretty well. I mean, we've had a couple of specials come in, a couple of big ones, I think, more than... Yeah, I know you're ahead in the leaderboard technically, but you've been choosing very low bets. I've had a couple of big ones.
This is your chance to brag. Come on.
17-1 2 weeks ago, West Ham to win half-time, Man United full-time. And then one of our Paddy Power specials last week came through 11-1 Arsenal to have over 35 crosses in the game. I think they had 36. So, yeah, that's two pretty big winners I'm going to take credit for.
And you're on the verge of another 7-1 winner if what has to happen?
Sheffield United to lose the next two games against United and Brighton.
Not to win.
Not to lose, not to win. So, yeah, that's one that's been 2 months in the making. So if that comes through, I'll be happy if I had any money on it, but I don't. That's the biggest issue. I haven't had any of my own money on any of those bets.
I was telling him now that the pressure is to try and keep this up. A 17-1 winner, an 11-1 winner, and potentially another 7-1 winner in about 4 weeks. That's the end of it. He should retire at this point, Paddy. Isn't that right? No one can keep this up.
100% quit when you're ahead. 100%. That's what you got to do. You take your money off the table. But unfortunately, put no money on. But there you go, Enda. You live and you learn.
Right, let's get into it. We have a whack of fixtures. Some of them good, some of them not so good. It's Wolves-Chelsea tonight at 6, Man City against West Brom at 8, then tomorrow it's Arsenal against Southampton, Leicester against Everton, which is all of a sudden a big game, Leeds versus Newcastle, Fulham-Brighton, Liverpool-Spurs, which is obviously the game of the midweek period here, West Ham against Crystal Palace, and then Thursday, Aston Villa against Burnley and Sheffield United against Manchester United. But we're going to pick some of those fixtures in a couple of minutes' time. Instead, we've been running some Instagram polls to see if we could get some of the wisdom of crowds going here as opposed to, us, which is always better. You've been looking at Player of the Year.
Yeah, so we did Player of the Year and Manager of the Year, the who's going to be the top scorer and who's the next manager to be sacked. And we asked the the Instagram voters to choose this. Obviously, I had to go back and tally up all these votes this morning, so there was over 1,000 votes on each of the sections. So there might be a little bit of a mix-up here. There may not be. I think the winners have been pretty. They're so far in the lead that there's no real issue with the votes. So Son at the minute had 300.
That's not very convincing there. You sound like Trump trying to sow a little bit of debate into the facts. Spit the facts out. Come on.
305 people think that Son is the player of the year so far. Bruno is the next closest with 100 votes. Salah 40, Kane 25, Calvert-Lewin 25, Jack Grealish 5. And then manager of the year, Ralph Hasenhüttl, is miles in the lead here. He has 90 votes. Jurgen Klopp has 60, the closest. And then Roy Hodgson has 1 vote in this. David Moyes has more votes than Marcel Bielsa does at the minute. So that's pretty interesting. Harry Kane, the easy winner in the top goal scorer. He has 82 votes. Mo Salah is the closest with 50. And then Arteta, 100 votes. Next manager to be sacked. Next closest, Slaven Bilic with 40 votes. So not good for him.
Stephanie Roach, Footballer of the Year. The Instagram voters, who I would say are very Irish, are going for Son. I suspect that the actual Footballer of the Year, if things continue the way they are, is going to be Harry Kane because he's English. But should Son be the Player of the Year?
Yeah, I think he's probably been the most underrated player for a couple of seasons now, hasn't he? I think his kind of link-up play with Harry Kane has been brilliant. I think Kane has probably a few more assists than Son, but I think if Son continues to play the way he is, I think, as you mentioned, I think the English thing does kind of factor into it. But for me, Son is exceptional. I think just his work rate, his goals, his assists, his play off the ball. He just seems like a really all-round player and a really good lad as well. And Jose Mourinho seems to be getting the very best out of himself and Harry Kane together. Yeah,
it has been one of those partnerships that has really worked. Paddy, is this a market that people bet in all year, or does it kind of wait until the last few minutes, few months, few weeks really before they actually get involved?
Yeah, I think it's one of the ones like towards if somebody's not miles ahead, it's like Golden Boot or something. You might have a few quid at the start of the year just to have an interest in it, but at the minute, like, it's the sort of one you get kind of stuck into towards the end of the season. But Harry Kane is a pretty short price favourite. The Son is actually 9-1. So if you did manage to hang on, I happen to think that he'd be the correct answer. I thought there was going to be a massive Liverpool bias in the Instagram vote, so this is refreshing that there wasn't. But even as a Liverpool fan, I'll say that. But anyway, Kane is 11-5 favourite, and De Bruyne is second favourite at 6-1. But I didn't even know he was playing this year. He's been pretty average by his standards this year, I would have thought. And then Son and Salah then both 9-1. So yeah, I think Son would deserve it at this stage. He's the most understated kind of hard working, stereotypical, like not getting the credit for what he does hero, and he has been for a number of years, like Stephanie said. So yeah, absolutely, he'd be the deserving winner.
The other thing is that this is a vote, it's not empirical evidence, so you also have to factor in the fact that some players are going to be more popular than others when the vote actually ends up happening. Like Bruno also has a case for being the most important footballer at his club by an absolute mile, but you just wonder if there's going to be if Man United are going to be successful enough for people to think, oh yeah, well you've had the impact that that Son has or that Kane has. Let's talk about Manager of the Year. So Hasenhüttl is at the moment the favourite for this. The popular vote winner for this. Stephanie, it's hard to pick anybody other than the champions, especially in a year like this where you've had to manage against COVID, you've had to manage against the TV companies, if you're Jurgen Klopp, who are conspiring against you by making you play games in the early window. I don't know, I would wait till the very last second, and whoever actually wins the league has done the best job.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in terms of the Manager of the Month or Manager of the Year, I think you have to also look at the players they're working with. And I think Hasenhüttl has been brilliant. I think if you look back to last season, the defeat against Leicester, 9-0 defeat, you're thinking the worst nearly at the start of last season. And he got them going towards the end of last season, and he's continued to form this season. I think he has them playing really good style of football. They've got a good spine through the team with Vestergaard and Bedranich, and then Ward-Prowse has been brilliant for them this season as well. And I think Danny Ings has been really good too. So I think he's got the best out of his squad, and I think it would be hard to overlook him. But again, as you say, I think if Liverpool win the title, if Tottenham can shock everybody and win the title, it would be hard to overlook the likes of Jose and Klopp.
Yeah, and what about Jose?
Jose, I'm telling you, if he wins the league this year, there's an argument. Not only is he Manager of the Year, he is Manager of the decade, if not the last 20, 30 years. He will have won everything, and he will have taken Tottenham from a side that have been competing for top 4, never going to win anything under Mauricio Pochettino, to a league-winning side within 2 years, adding in the fact that everyone has written him off to this point. So what he's done with Tottenham so far has been really impressive, and I think the all or nothing, I know it was sort of a little like PR piece for Tottenham, and he would have had a lot of say in what went in, what didn't, but it did give you quite a bit of insight into what he was trying to garner there at Tottenham. And you can see that coming into this side this year as well, with Dele Alli sitting on the bench, not doing anything after the talk that they had in it. But also the likes of Son, Harry Kane, what he's done to Harry Kane when he sat him down and said, I'm going to take you to the next level. If you stick with me and buy into what I'm trying to do, I will make you an absolute superstar. And that's what Harry Kane has bought into. He is the leader in that side. And I think that Jose Mourinho, if he wins the league this year, will rightfully so get his plaudits.
What if they finish second? Is it not still an amazing job? Like, does he have to win the league for you to be able to...
They need to win something, because we all know what Mourinho does in the third season. So this second season, Mourinho is always the best Mourinho. So they need to win at least a trophy, if not the league.
If Spurs win the league, Paddy, it is one of the most remarkable stories in football. Like, it's not quite at the level of Leicester winning the league, but for him to have that comeback from, as Enda says, everybody writing him off as yesterday's man.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it would be absolutely justified. And Enda says he'd be manager of the decade. Well, it'll be 2021 to be manager of the decade so far, anyway. But yeah, I think. But if you look at it, okay, Liverpool win the league, you could argue that Klopp maybe doesn't get manager of the year because it depends who finishes second. But anyone else around, and like if Man City now come from whatever they're ninth or whatever, if they come from ninth and go win the league, Guardiola, well done. But anybody apart from the top kind of 2 really at this stage who win it, I think deserves hats off. And Hasenhüttl probably has no chance, because they're realistically not going to finish 4th, or they're going to finish like at best 8th or 10th or something like that. So at that stage he'll have declined. If they're giving it out now, he'd have a chance. So yeah, I mean, realistically, I think Mourinho's got a massive chance, but they have to stay there. Leicester as well. I mean, Leicester have been hanging around like for a good few years now from a real flash in the pan. They proved that they're anything but that. So yeah, so it would be all Mourinho's. I think anyone bar Liverpool wins the league, they absolutely win manager of the year. But Liverpool and maybe Man City may not get it, even if they win the league.
It would be interesting, and Klopp, I'm sure, would use that to fuel his fire. So next is Golden Boot. What is the vote saying here, Enda?
Harry Kane's miles in the head here. 82 votes. Salah's the closest with 50. Jimmy Vardy close with 45, and then Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Current top goal scorer only got 6 votes altogether. So,
right, so yeah,
that's quite surprising. But in this, you really think that maybe Jimmy Vardy could surprise a few people.
So Dominic Calvert-Lewin has 11 goals. Mo Salah has 10. Son has 10. Vardy has 10. Kane has 9. Patrick Bamford, who doesn't get a look in, is 8. And then after that, it's Bruno Fernandes with 7. Callum Wilson of Newcastle with 7. Wilfried Zaha with 7. Danny Ings at 6. You could see Danny Ings making a bit of a run, because obviously he missed some time with injury a little bit earlier on in the season, and he is, as we keep talking about in this show every week, one of the single most impactful players in terms of how market responds. So, top scorer, Stephanie Roche. What do you think is going to happen here?
Yeah, I think I'd find it hard to go against Harry Kane, just with the history that he's had. Obviously, he's scored goals for fun in the Premier League. And again, Jamie Vardy, probably another one who could pop up with a few goals, still scoring goals for fun. Since Leicester won the league, he's been an ever-present goal scorer, you know. So I think it's difficult to kind of go against them. And Mo Salah obviously doing really well at Liverpool. Again, I think it's going to depend on who hits that vein of form and who's going to be kind of creating the most chances. And I think for me, Harry Kane just has that edge over the players that you've mentioned.
What has allowed Dominic Calvert-Lewin to come from an 80-1 shot at the start of the season to being a very short price now, and somebody who looks like he deserves his place in any of the teams he's playing in at the moment, even playing for England? You're like, actually, it's hard to drop that guy.
Yeah, he's made a great breakthrough, hasn't he? I think getting his caps for England has definitely helped him. I think Ancelotti coming into Everton has really shown faith in him. I think he's really picked him up as a top player, and he's starting to believe in himself, and he has that confidence when he's playing. I think he's became the main man at Everton, and he's scoring, as you say, many goals. And it's just a difficult one, because I think, as I said, going forward, will he have as many chances as Kane will have created for him and the team? I don't know. But I wouldn't write him off either. But I just think, for me, Harry Kane, as I said, has got the history of scoring goals along with Jamie Vardy and Salah. So it's a difficult one for him. But if he keeps going the way he is, he will maybe be up there with a show. Yeah,
I mean, look, that's really very interesting, right? Because he is the focal point of the Everton attack. And so if they are creating chances, it's essentially him. Now, he didn't take the penalty the weekend. Sigurdsson took the penalty, so that would be a negative mark against him. But if you're Spurs, You will be creating chances for at least two of your players. I wonder, is it better to be the main person on the team, particularly when it comes to chasing something like Golden Boot, and the whole team, as the season goes on and they realise they're not going to finish in the top four, start to hand the penalties over to you, start to create chances just for you, look for you in the box as opposed to trying to win the game. Whereas with Spurs, they're like, they don't really care who scores.
Yeah, that's a fair point, I suppose, isn't it? I think, as you mentioned, if Harry Kane and Son come in the Premier League, I'm sure they'll take that over the Golden Boot. So that could come into a factor. But I just think Harry Kane, as I said, he's so ruthless in front of goal, and he's always in good positions. Calvert-Lewin, yeah, the focal point of everything, but I just think, as I said, the history of goal scoring from Harry Kane for me it puts him ahead of the pile at the moment.
Yeah, Paddy, all the value from this market is gone, but Dominic Calvert-Lewin at 80-1, that was the bet to make each way.
Yeah, it was. But if you picked that out, like, Jesus, some sort of oracle, weren't you? I mean, to be fair, none of us knew what was going to happen. But I think Stephanie's point is 100% the one you got to think about here, is what teams are going to be hanging around the top of the table, scoring the goals. And I would have a tiny worry about Kane with the old Mourinho team thing, that if they start getting defended, they mightn't score as many goals, basically, as Liverpool say. And if that being the case, then Salah would just have the edge. And Vardy's uncanny. To the other point you were making there, the Vardy's just uncanny at being the one who just pops up and keeps scoring. Like, and even when Leicester are not doing great, Vardy's still towards the top of the goal scoring charts always. But I'd be just edging for Salah, I think. Yeah, it's a fair point too. And Vardy, even when he comes off the bench, is proven to be capable of scoring goals. Okay, so the last one of this before we get into some games. First manager sacked.
Yeah, so obviously Mikel Arteta is way ahead here. 100 votes, Slaven Bilic 40. Solskjaer on 32, level with Chris Wilder. It's amazing that someone who is currently 5 points off the top with a game in hand is level with the next manager to be sacked with the manager who hasn't won a game this year. So that it shows you what narratives can do for to shape people's opinion when it comes to it. But sure, like, Mikel Arteta is surely the favourite to be sacked here, but it just depends whether someone can actually afford to sack him or not.
This is a market that moves all the time, Paddy, right? Like, it massively overreacts sometimes to one result.
Yeah, 100%. But that's because we know what can happen. Like, I mean, how quickly managers can get the bullet. Like, because we don't know what's going on in boardrooms. If success has been lined up and things like that. And funny, when I heard Arteta on the sports news there earlier, the little clip they played of him talking about, the players need to take responsibility. I mean, when you're asking, it's a very dangerous thing for the manager to start blaming players for playing badly, because normally it's the manager's fault, isn't it? But he seems to be under pressure, but he's kind of young and everything. Arsenal just wouldn't like to be the club that starts flying through managers, so I think he might be okay. I think Chris Wilder is, at this stage, when you think about a club that's down the bottom, like, almost certainly, absolutely going to be relegated again. Like, is there any point in trying to get a new manager and trying to survive, or just kind of suck it up and just say, right, well, next year we'll try and get back into the Premier League or stay in the race anyway from the Championship? So it's a tricky one. I mean, if you're going by headlines, you'd say Solskjaer would be the one. But again, they're not doing too bad. They're not too bad when you sit in the table with their game in hand. So I don't know. It's a difficult one.
Yeah. Stephanie, you're a Man United fan, I think. Where do you stand on Solskjaer at the minute?
Yeah, look, I think things haven't been good for United for a couple of years, have they, really? And I think Solskjaer is probably okay at the moment. I think a huge part of why he's okay, I think, is he seems to have a lot of friends in media in England, and I think a lot of the time the media push what happens with their headlines and what's talked about on the live games on TV and stuff, and I think he seems to be getting the backing from the likes of Roy Keane and other players like that, so I think that helps him. And also the fact that things really haven't been working out at Man United, and there seems to be a little bit maybe more going on behind the scenes that are bigger issues, and I think he's had players who are being touted as world-class players who just aren't performing for him. I think the likes of Pogba and the crap around him now as well, it's his agent coming in and saying all this sort of stuff, kind of takes the limelight off Solskjaer at times a little bit. I'd probably agree with Paddy on Arteta as well. I think Arteta maybe needs a little bit more time. I think the fact that he's managing Arsenal and they're maybe not doing so well is probably what has him top of the pile. I actually read an article this morning. Steve Wilder obviously has done really well with Sheffield United over the last couple of seasons. I think it was 2 promotions in 3 seasons. So he seems to have the backing from the club no matter what happens, which is strange to see when you see them only getting 1 point so far this season. So it's a difficult one for me. I think Graham Potter at Brighton as well is probably a manager who maybe might be brought into it just they made kind of a conscious decision to change the way they were playing by getting rid of Chris Houghton and then bringing him in, and it kind of hasn't worked out in terms of winning games and being ruthless at times, so I would worry for him as well.
But what about their XG, Enda? What about Brighton's XG? It's really good.
Yeah, people love referring to that. What was it, 3-0 against Leicester last week after somebody in this studio that wasn't me said that they might have a chance?
Yeah, I thought they did have a chance. Thought that Leicester were a little bit... I thought people were overreacting to Leicester. It turns out I was wrong. Leicester, not bad. And their manager can't get no love, especially in this part of the world. I have no idea why. Right, let's move on to some of these games here. Arsenal against Southampton. So Arsenal currently 15th and Southampton 4th in the table as it stands at the moment. The team used for this, Arsenal without Granit Xhaka after his red card against Burnley. Hector Bellerin is also out after picking up his 5th yellow card of the season. Thomas Partey and David Luiz out with injuries. Nicolas Pepe is back after serving his suspension. But Danny Ings is playing, and that's what I think is the most important thing here. Paddy, how do people try and price up Arsenal when they're in a run of form like this?
It's really, I mean, you're looking at this, I'm just looking at the odds here in front of me, and you're kind of going, Arsenal at home. If you asked me before the season started, Arsenal at home to Southampton, they're going to be long odds on. They're going to be certainties to win this. But now suddenly in the run of form they're in, there's only one team you want to be back in here, and that's Southampton. And Arsenal have to be favourites because they're at home. They're 6-5. They're odds against. So maybe a staunch Arsenal fan would say they're worth a few quid. But Southampton at 11-5, bigger than 2-1, you kind of go, that might actually be worth a squeak. You know, it might just, there's a small few quid because Arsenal are very vulnerable. It's the right time to be playing them. They really are under a lot of pressure, and a team like Southampton, who are full of confidence and on the up, they should be going there. Not to, like, normally a team like Southampton going to Arsenal, with no disrespect to them, will be going there to try and maybe get a draw at the very best if you're lucky, just try and keep the score down type of thing and play defensively. But I think you'd go for them now. So I think Southampton will go there with a bit of confidence, a bit of swagger, and they could do them. Yeah, that's one of the hallmarks of the Southampton team, is that they do actually make an attempt to play, that they're not going just to batten down the hatches. Stephanie, when a young manager like this is going through a crisis of confidence, how do you interrupt that pattern? How do you stop that?
I think his players need to give him a dig out, don't they? I think when you talk about the players that he's missing, obviously there was a lot of talk about Ozil being left out of the squad at the start of the season. And when you look at the chances, I think before the Burnley game, they were the third lowest chances created in the league, which is a strange one to hear from an Arsenal team. You know, they're usually a team who are creating lots of chances and scoring loads of goals, haven't scored from open play in over 12 hours. Like, that's a worrying stat, you know. And I think, for me, I think the biggest problem for them is that they don't really have that leader within the team. But also you have to look at the chances they're creating. I think Aubameyang, kind of Lacazette has missed kind of a couple of chances. I think in fairness to Arteta, in the Burnley game, they were probably going to go on and win the game up until that incident with Xhaka. And look, Xhaka hasn't done himself any favours again with the fans, has he? I think he's let himself down again with the team. But I think for Arteta, it's about getting the players to play for him a little bit better and maybe give a little bit more for him. Yeah, I think Arsenal are one of the few places in the world where they're very happy about London going back into the next stage of lockdown, so there won't be 2,000 booing fans there. At least they'll have to imagine the boos, which I'm sure is a Pavlovian response they have at the moment. Anything you want to say about this, Enda? Yeah, I think Southampton are a really good price in this. They're 11-5, which would have them about 30% chance. But if you look at their actual XG and their stats going into this game, they probably have about a 50% chance of winning this game based on the results. So they're unbeaten in 10 of the last 11 games away from home, and they've scored 2 goals or more in the last 8. So given Arsenal's defence and Arsenal's attack as well, I'd probably go with Southampton in this as well. If you want to bring it even further than that, I'd probably go Southampton to 0 as well because of the lack of goals Arsenal are scoring. That's tomorrow's 6 o'clock game, Arsenal against Southampton. Let's move on and talk about Leicester against Everton. This is a Leicester side, and I'm making the point kind of flippantly, but Brendan Rodgers doesn't really get the credit he deserves, Paddy, does he?
No, I think he's a brilliant manager, absolutely brilliant manager, and he will have success, and it will come to him. And when he gets a bit older, he's only young still as well. When he gets a bit older, he'll be considered one of the very good ones. I think he's doing a great job at Leicester because there's, after winning the league and everything, there's no reason why they should still be as good as they are and as kind of as hangy aroundy as they are. So I think Brendan Rodgers deserves a good bit of credit from coming into that position and taking that team. I think he's managed to sustain and grow, so he's good. Yeah, you can see how Arsenal must be looking at Brendan Rodgers and going, lads, what was it too obvious? Do we overthink this a little bit? Going for the kid who has no experience versus this guy who has managed in the Champions League with Liverpool and Celtic, and actually, would have clearly turned his back on Leicester if we'd just made the right offer. So
What has impressed you about either Leicester or Everton? Because Everton have kind of been a bit patchy so far, Stephanie.
I watched Leicester Brighton live over the other day, and the way they play football is really good. And again, I think, as you mentioned, Brendan Rodgers kind of going under the radar in terms of how well he's doing with the team. They play an exciting style of football, and they don't let the other teams play. They have Vardy's pace on the break. They have Maddison, who has that little bit of magic as well. Like, I've been really impressed with them. I think, as I said, they'll be quietly kind of sneaking up the table and might be in with a shout if they can continue the form that they've had. I think Everton obviously started off really well. Ancelotti has come in and really kind of changed their mindset. I think they seem like a team who actually want to go and win games and do well. And not that they weren't before, but I think he's definitely brought a different element to the team. But maybe a few slip-ups, the loss against Leeds, maybe is something that they want to put behind them. And hopefully they'll be looking to try and get points on the board against Leicester. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think it'll be an exciting game. There
is some team news for this. We don't think Coleman and Rodriguez will play, although they are both back fit. Now, I've seen a lot of build-up team news before about players being fit and not expected to play, and then them going straight back into the team, particularly when it's players like Coleman and Rodriguez who can change the texture and expectation for how that team plays and what the opposition have to do as well. So I wouldn't be surprised, Enda, if they play in this at this point. What are the stats telling us?
Yeah, well, if you look at the Seamus Coleman, James Rodriguez one, that their injuries and Everton's drop in form has gone hand in hand. So they need the two of them in the team for them to play the brand of football that they want, because Iwobi and Holgate just don't do it down the right-hand side for them. So that, if they are playing, I do think Everton are a better shout in this. But again, yeah, like, I know I criticised Brendan Rodgers a couple of weeks ago, but he obviously is a very good coach. But my question is whether or not his teams can take it to the next level and win the games that they need to win. And they haven't proven that yet. But this is the kind of games where Leicester have won. And with the likes of Wilfred Ndidi coming back into the side, James Maddison's massive. Leicester have already weathered their injury storm. So if they can keep them fit and keep Jamie Vardy fit, then I do think they're within a good chance of staying in the top four this year, as opposed to dropping out like they did last year. In this game itself, I do think that Leicester are probably a good shot just to nab this. Both teams to score maybe might be a good shot in this.
Yeah, so both teams to score, I think, is 2-1 on at this point. That's it. I haven't actually. I presume Leicester are favourites for this, Paddy, are they?
They are, yeah. They're 6-5. So it's actually no one's the same price as the Arsenal game, but this time Leicester are the equivalent of Arsenal with the odds, 6-5.
Yeah, you'd feel a bit more confident about backing Leicester at 6-5 against Everton than I would backing Arsenal at 6-5 against pretty much anybody. Maybe Dundalk. You'd have a little bit of confidence for that one. Right, so that is also tomorrow, and it's a huge game for Leicester because obviously just after that we've got the game of the midweek break, and it's Liverpool against Spurs at 8 o'clock. Leicester could be top of the table before that happens if they manage to beat Everton. So Liverpool against Spurs. What are your stats telling us here, Enda?
Well, if you go by stats or go by XG, which, as I've said, you can't always go by that, but there's going to be goals in this game if you look at them, because Liverpool are currently expected to score 3 goals or more at home. Tottenham are likely to score 2 or more goals away from home. So you're looking at that, and that screams goals. It doesn't matter how many goals there's going to be. But I suppose this one's going to be an interesting one. We were kind of discussing this off air. Tottenham on the break against Liverpool's makeshift defence of Henderson, Fabinho, Trent, Nico Williams, depending on who it is. That's going to be a dangerous one. So it depends on whether Tottenham can get their counter-attack going properly, or if Liverpool can actually get through Tottenham's really tough defence. So this one is really finely balanced. It's one of those ones where it's the big teams coming up against each other in a really condensed period, and they rarely end up in good games. So the stats say there's going to be goals, but I don't think there will be that many.
I think that's a fair point, Stephanie. This is a conversation we were having this morning on OTB AM. Daniel Harris made the point that if you're Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, or indeed if you're Pep Guardiola, you're really only interested in not losing the Manchester derby. You don't really care because you know the season is long enough. This is one of those games where both Liverpool and Spurs will be very happy, you would suspect, with a 0-0 draw right now and no injuries. If you offered that, they'd bite your hand off, Alan McCarthy. What do you think will happen here?
Yeah, look, I think it's a game. I think Liverpool have obviously been decimated with injuries. Klopp has kind of not being quiet about that. I think he's been given out about the sub situation and stuff like that, and the injuries they've had to deal with. I think they've been quite resourceful. They were poor against Fulham. I think the first half an hour particularly, you could hear Klopp on the sideline demanding more for them to wake up and stuff. So look, I think they'll be happy enough to get a draw. I think we know Jose's probably going to go into the game and play the same usual style he's been playing. I think against Crystal Palace, more so Crystal Palace's front three were probably the ones to break on them, and I think he didn't really see Harry Kane and Son breaking the way that he would and get those kind of chances made. So I think against Liverpool he'd be hoping to sit in like he does and hope that Son and Kane can work a bit of magic for them. But as you say, I think both managers, with the way things are, particularly for Liverpool at the minute with the injuries they have, and Jose probably be happy enough with a draw. Yeah.
Paddy, what do you do if you're Klopp in this situation? Do you try and go and bloody the nose of Jose Mourinho and remind Spurs that they haven't won a league yet and that you're still the big boys? Or are you like, look, we'll see you later down the road, don't worry about it?
I think the latter might be the cleverer option. I think but with Mourinho, I'm just not sure. I mean, it looks like a right time for Tottenham to have a go at Liverpool, to really go there and try and like take their pants down and embarrass them at home. But I think that the points that have just been made there, that they're probably both likely to just take the draw and go home and wait for a longer season. But I don't know. I think Liverpool are 8-11 at home. It just seems like pretty short odds. I think they're better than Tottenham. But I think at the moment they're vulnerable. I mean, against Fulham they were pretty ordinary, and Tottenham are going well obviously at the minute. They're bigger than 3-1. I might just think Mourinho would love this. I mean, I'd love it. He'd love nothing more than to finish off as manager of the month and all that kind of stuff, and have this big victory over Liverpool at Anfield on his belt. And I think that while Liverpool may finish in front of them at the end of the season, I think Tottenham might just do them. Yeah, and you can see why as well. Being top at Christmas and all the stuff that comes around that as well. From Mourinho's perspective, this would be a real signpost on the road. Everything's going the right direction. It's great that they're winning the games that they won, but these are the champions. This is a team who beat you in a Champions League final. It's a measure of revenge, and all of a sudden the game kind of begins to take on a lot more. In those circumstances in the past, we've seen Mourinho be very, very cautious. So is it ridiculous to suggest this could also be a 0-0?
It could be a 0-0, but I think there's more value in both teams to score here, whether or not it's going to be a high-scoring game, because around about 75% of Liverpool's games have finished with both teams to score this year, albeit you're not factored in yeah. Tottenham's defensive mindset. But if you think of this basically as what strengths do the managers play into that is the weakness of the other side? Mourinho likes a side to come on and attack them so that they can get them on the counter-attack. And with Liverpool's defence at the minute, then you do think that Tottenham can do harm there. But if Tottenham just shut up shop, can Liverpool break them down? If Liverpool break them down, then Tottenham need to go on to them. So Liverpool will want to score early in this game for them to get a foothold into it. That's what I think. Liverpool will come out in this all guns blazing like they used to about a year and a half ago and try do Tottenham early on in this game. If they can do that, then I think Liverpool win it. But if the longer the game goes on, it's an old cliche, I do think Tottenham will win this game. All
right. Either way, everybody's going to be watching. That's 8 o'clock tomorrow night. And then on Thursday, Villa-Burnley is at 6. But the game we want to talk about is Sheffield United against Manchester United. Really, Sheffield United, two more games without a win for you, Enda, to have a 7-1 winner. What's going to happen?
I think United are going to win this. It's getting into the period now where United are... The narrative is, can Ole Gunnar Solskjaer make it through Christmas? And he generally does. So I think Sheffield are just terrible. They're not scoring goals, and that's their real issue. They're not keeping goals out either. So it's been the issue all season. They haven't fixed it so far, and I don't think it's going to get any better for them. I'm interested to see if Pogba will start, because it's a real power play and a bit of a power switch when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't really need to start him anymore for him to be. For United to do well, but then he comes on the Champions League and absolutely changes the game. So he almost brought the power back to his corner there. Obviously, Mino Raiola and Pogba are both now saying that the quotes weren't interpreted as they were supposed to. Pogba was basically saying that it didn't happen, even though the interview's there on paper. But I think on this game itself, I think United have too much for Sheffield, who are the worst team in the league this year.
Yeah, Stephanie, the descent from last season where Sheffield United were exciting to watch, and this is a young, creative English manager who's got 3 at the back, and John Egan's strolling out and playing nice balls, and it was like, what has happened to that team? How do you go from being confident and, supposed to be there to all of a sudden looking like you're a fraud?
Yeah, look, I think it's a strange one, isn't it? I think they've probably started to maybe not be as brave on the ball. Maybe when they came in last season, they were exciting to watch. They were getting forward. They were, as I said, exciting to watch and playing good football with their wing backs. Enda Stevens done really well for them. He's just come back from injury as well, so he'll be a good bonus for them to have back in. They've had a couple of injuries as well, important players missing for them, but I do think that it's been a strange turnaround, and I feel for Steve Waller, as you said, he's done so well over the last couple of years, and for it to go so wrong so quickly, it's a difficult one to put your finger on what the actual reason is for that. You know, I just think they've lacked that kind of intensity to their play. They used to kind of really try and get as many overloads up high up the pitch in last season, and they were really exciting to watch, as I mentioned, but it just doesn't seem to be happening this season for them just as yet. So
just on that, Ger, I was reminded of a quote, somebody put this up on Twitter the last day, of Daniel Farke when Norwich were obviously getting battered every single week last season, and he basically said that coming up into the Premier League, the teams who play attacking football and score loads of goals rarely stay up in the first year, and the teams that play defensive football and don't really attack much, they just concentrate on their defensive mindset, they usually stay up. But if they manage to stay up, then they can't get their attack right and they don't stay up the second season. That's sort of what's happened to Sheffield United. That's why he wanted to approach the game with Norwich. They'll get their attack right in the Premier League, step up to the level, and the defensive, if they can manage to stay in the Premier League, the defence will come the next year, and then they will be more successful over the next couple of years. Didn't work out for them, but basically what he's trying to say is attacking sides, if they can manage to stay in the Premier League, are more suited to stay in the Premier League for longer than defensive sides. Sort of like, say, Leeds this year. Or Villa. Well, not Villa, come on. But you know what I'm talking about. Those types of sides.
But your point is that he's kept his job and they're actually they're going to come back up.
Yeah.
Because they're top of the championship at the moment.
Exactly, and Sheffield United will go down, they may not come back up.
So Chris Waller should stay in the gig, that's what they should do. They should keep him and then bounce back up, rather than getting somebody new in trying desperately to save the season, because there's literally no point at this stage. Do you, as a Man United fan, do you want to see more Pogba, or do you want to see Van de Beek in? How do you feel, Stephanie, about that whole scenario at the moment?
Yeah, look, before I would have always been a huge fan of Pogba. I thought, particularly before the likes of Bruno Fernandes came in and Van de Beek came in, I would have always thought that maybe he had the quality and maybe just didn't have the quality around him to work. But I just think the last couple of months, he's obviously had a lot of injuries. He's been in and out of the squad. The rotation from Ollie has been a bit strange at times with different players playing all the time. But I just think, for me, and I think for most Man United fans, I think people are just beginning to get fed up. I think there's too much stuff going on off the pitch with his agents and him not saying anything. I know he said before the midweek game or the game against Man City that he's 1,000% with Manchester United. But I just think when you look at Fernandes and how he's came in and just took the Premier League by the scruff of the neck and really took off, you know, I think people wanted Pogba to do that and he hasn't been able to do it. And I don't think it's that he hasn't got the ability. I think he's physical, he's strong, he's obviously got great quality on the ball, but he just doesn't seem to really, really want it. And that's probably the hardest thing for Man United fans to take, I think. As a fan, I think if you have an opportunity to play for Man United, you're going to give it your all. And I just think at times he just doesn't seem to have that. And as I mentioned, when you see Fernandes coming in and doing so well, I think that made him even look even worse, because, as I said, as a fan watching, I would have said he probably hasn't got the quality around him. But Fernandes is coming in and doing it with the players that are there. Obviously, they've added a couple of more players to the team with Cavani and Van de Beek, as mentioned. But I just think his time is probably coming to an end, and I think it's probably time to move on and let him leave, because I think he's just tarnishing the name of the club. And I think Sir Alex Ferguson kind of has never been too far wrong about players, and he was never kind of a huge fan of him or his agent. So I think, for me, personally, I think it's probably time to move on and try and work with the other players that are there.
Yeah. Paddy, as a Liverpool fan, do you want Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to remain at Manchester United?
I think it's better when they don't have an excuse to be rubbish, you know. So I think no, I actually genuinely think he should be given more of a chance, and they should start. I think the problem with United is actually more in the players they buy rather than the manager himself. I think Ferguson probably was a huge band-aid over that for many years because he was just so amazing. But I just think they've kind of struggled to buy the quality. I mean, I think Pogba was a case in point. He just seems like Man United's a club that with such a history that they, like to Stephanie's point exactly, if she ever got a chance to play for United, it would just be it'd be it, and you'd live and die by them. But Pogba seems to be more interested in the brand Pogba and making loads of money than he is about winning trophies, and I think that's a big issue. Well, and that culture seeps into the dressing room, because you spend all that money on Alexis Sanchez and then you've got to give loads of money to Jesse Lingard because he's playing in the same team as him, and all of a sudden Jesse Lingard sets the barrier for what a young player coming into the team can expect, and all of a sudden it's 150 grand a week or 120 grand a week, and that snowballs to the point where
everybody's getting massively overpaid. Somebody had the stat that David De Gea is the highest paid Spanish footballer in the world at the moment. It's like, that's pretty good for David De Gea. Not great for Manchester United when he's, not helping the team win. I presume Manchester United are heavy favourites, even though the game is at Sheffield United for this?
Yeah, they are. Like, I'm not being an expert in managerial stuff or even compiling odds, but to use Enda's analysis is very deep analysis that Sheffield United, by the stats, aren't very good at scoring goals and aren't very good at keeping goals out. It's probably not a great combination. So United are 2-5 to win this, even away from home. And Sheffield United 11-2. Sort of a game they'd be delighted just to score an early couple of goals, because if they do go behind, which they've done a few times, it's the ultimate banana skin, isn't it? Imagine this is the first game Sheffield United win against United. It'd be terrible for United, but I think Man United will win handy.
Strange things do happen at Christmas, including our guest odds compiler from Paddy Power this week being Paddy Power himself, as opposed to one of your pointy-headed colleagues who does actually go into the XG and shots and stuff and drop some truth bombs on us. He's turned Enda into a sage, so as I said, miracles happen at Christmas. Stephanie, great to have you with us this week. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Thanks very much.
Paddy Power, thanks to you as well. That is this week's edition of the Paddy Power Half Hour. We're with you every Friday afternoon from 1:30. It's lunchtime. It's giving you some advice about how to navigate the choppy waters of the weekend's football. We'll see you next Friday at 1:30. Until then, take care.
The Paddy Power Half Hour on OTB Sports. Minimal contact in stadiums. That shouldn't stop the usual suspects from going down. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Things are going to be a little bit different this year, Tiss.
It's going to be a quiet one, Tomo.
Not so fast, lads. I've got us a job. Paddy Power want us to do the new Christmas advert.
Paddy Power.
What?
How's it come to this?
All the sport to the telly this Christmas is a real gift. Sport is the gift that keeps on giving.
And you can make the most of all that sport with Paddy Power.
How embarrassing.
Totally worth it for this.
What have we become?
Chin up, 'tis the season to be jolly. Merry Christmas, lads.
Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me.
September. Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know, it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It is the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido, crappy quiz. Every week, we pit three of Team Off the Ball up against each other in a quiz of sporting factoids that is no holds barred sometimes at the end of the week. This week, with thanks to Paddy Power as part of our Paddy Power special, it is an Irish football-themed quiz. And we've got three of the greats of Irish football brainiacs going head to head in this. So allow me to welcome today's three contestants. Introducing our first contestant. He spoke about a plan to save the League of Ireland on OTB AM last week, and after getting 2 positive reactions to his ideas on social media, he has now called himself a visionary and the chairman of a working group. We can thank this man for any and all of the success that Irish football will ever get in the future. Adrian, who's your daddy Barry? Come on in.
Steering group, actually.
Steering group.
Yeah. I'm a details man, you're not. That's okay.
I would have expected the chairman of a steering group to be a little better dressed than a zippy hoodie today, but it's okay.
Shade.
It's okay. We forgive you. Our second contestant tonight likes to be called Tom Cruise at home because he's gone all Minority Report on the multiple screens he uses to watch football. The sheer thought of ignoring all his loved ones on Stephen's Day to watch West Ham play Brighton has him all hot and bothered. Spreading festive cheer today, it is Phil the Power Egan.
How are you doing?
Nice headphones, Phil.
Yeah. Got the hoodie as well, because that's what we do nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah, well, let's see how our final contestant today is dressed, because he is looking for a brand new football club after falling out of love with his last one. As a die-hard football hipster, he cannot abide his former love, Real Sociedad, getting to over 30,000 followers on Twitter. And it's now time for him to move on to bigger and better hipster things. Give it up for A-Bar's newest fan, Stephen Doyle.
I'm actually disgusted to be associated with Real Sociedad. We all know that Athletic Bilbao are the coolest club in the Basque region. So you might be hearing from my solicitors there.
And the coolest jumper of the afternoon. The coolest jumper of the afternoon goes your way. So you're really winning so far here. Today's crappy quiz, as ever, is going to feature 3 rounds of moderately difficult questioning before we venture into the fun free magic number round and then into the slip and slide of trivia to determine who is today's crappy quiz champion via our rapid fire round. Round 1, let's get things underway. It is the Irish Abroad round. While England may have hoovered up most of the Irish football talents in living memory, it hasn't stopped every Irish trailblazer from taking their talents to exotic places such as Sampdoria and Perth Glory. You'll each get a question here on Irish footballers who have gone beyond Ireland and the UK to get ahead in their career. So, Adrian, question 1 for you. Mick McCarthy introduced France to his dulcet Barnsley tones in 1989 when he signed up for which club?
Marseille.
Anyone?
Leon.
Leon, correct. Phil knows.
Damn it.
We don't pass over points, so it's nothing for Adrian, nothing for Phil, but Leon, the correct answer. Phil, Liam Brady played for Juventus, Sampdoria, Inter Milan, and which other Italian club in the 1980s?
Oh, that's my brain going off there. This came up last week. It begins with. It's gone from my head.
Which ones did you give on? Inter?
I gave Inter, I gave Juventus, and I gave Sampdoria.
It's like
Udinese.
It is not Udinese. It is Ascoli.
Ascoli, yeah, God.
Question 1 for you, Steve-O. We are currently tied at 0-0. Can you make it 1? Steve Finnan may have gone straight from Liverpool to Portsmouth in your memory, but no, he made 4 appearances for a La Liga team in between those 2 stints. Which club was it?
Finnan went to, oh God, was it the aforementioned, why is this gone blank now? Real Sociedad?
It was not Real Sociedad. Does anybody know?
It wasn't Espanyol.
It was Espanyol, Phil. The questions that
great.
Paul,
Good lads.
Phil
I was going to say Espanyol.
0-0 as we head into round 2, which is the Irish greats that never became Irish greats round. In this round, we'll be asking you questions about the footballers that have incredibly Irish names but are actually about as Irish as Declan Rice. Question 2 for you, Adrian.
I better be Thomas Delaney on or I'm screwed.
Daniel O'Shaughnessy, formerly of Cheltenham Town, played against Ireland this year for which country?
Is it Daniel O'Shaughnessy? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that, no. You by all means go ahead and absolutely butcher his surname.
Oh, Daniel O'Shaughnessy. How do you pronounce it locally? What would that?
That is a very, very good question. Unfortunately, my worldliness doesn't expand as far as this particular country.
Okay, well, that's giving me a good steer away from where I was headed, so.
Gonna need to push you for an answer here. Just think about it, O'Shaughnessy.
I'll go with Denmark.
No, not too far off though.
Finland.
Finland, indeed. Nations League hero for Finland.
O'Shaughnessy was the commentary line, wasn't it?
Right, okay. See, so apologies to Daniel and all the O'Shaughnessy's of Helsinki. Question 2 for Phil. Thomas Delaney broke many an Irish heart by his insistence on being Danish, but which club did he play for before playing for Borussia Dortmund?
He was with Copenhagen.
Immediately before Borussia Dortmund. I will say I didn't phrase this correctly. Immediately for Borussia Dortmund, so I'll give you another crack. He was with Copenhagen.
No.
Why do it? I remember him playing for Copenhagen. Dortmund.
There was one club in the middle, Phil. Which was it? Gonna need an answer here, Phil.
No, he's not got it.
Someone like Leverkusen.
It was not Leverkusen.
Werder Bremen.
It was Werder Bremen. Steve-O gets it. but yet to score points.
I won't get my own now.
We're all doing great at each other's questions.
Stephen, when you hear the name Kenny Cunningham, you think of Birmingham City and Wimbledon. When I hear the name Kenny Cunningham, I think of Wellington Phoenix, San Carlos and Perez Zeledon. The other Kenny Cunningham, the one I think of, has 14 international caps for a country that's not Ireland. Which country is it?
Oh, wow. New Zealand?
No. No. Phil, surely you know this.
Connie Cunningham.
New Zealand? No. Canada?
No. Does nobody remember the Costa Rican Kenny Cunningham?
No.
I thought this would be the easiest question in the quiz. We've yet to score a point, and nobody remembers Costa Rican Kenny Cunningham. Maybe it was Connie Cunningham when they pronounced it in Costa Rica. I don't know.
Costa Rican Football Club.
Costa Rican Football Club. Still going as well in his mid to late 30s.
At this particular moment in time.
He is still going at this particular moment in time, Phil. You're dead right. Round 3 is the Nathan Murphy Irish goal scorers round. Nothing spells the end of a Premier League season quite like Nathan Murphy's annual tweet about the leading Irish goal scorer in a given campaign. No one else manages to tot up meaningless stats quite like him. This round will test your knowledge on the Irishmen that have topped the Irish goal scoring charts in the Premier League era. Adrian, question 3 for you. Who finished top Irish goal scorer in the Premier League last season?
Matt Doherty.
Boom, we have a correct answer.
Oh, wow.
Adrian goes 1-0 up.
Unbelievable.
Phil, question 3 for you. In Nathan's fantastic Irish goal scorer list, Robbie Keane topped the list on 7 different seasons. Shane Long came out on top in 6 seasons, and Niall Quinn came out on top in 5 seasons. But can you tell me who finished top of the list the 4th most times? He finished 4 times as Irish top goal scorer in the Premier League.
I'm confused.
It's Premier League only.
Premier League only. Who won Nathan's trophy the 4th most times, basically, after Robbie Keane, Shane Long, Niall Quinn?
I'm going to say Kevin Doyle.
Not Kevin Doyle.
John Walters?
Jonathan Walters, correct. Adrian's on a roll here. But still, no points on offer there. Phil, you're left with nothing. Stephen, question 3 for you. Outside of Keane, Quinn, Long and Walters, the other Irish players who have topped the list on multiple seasons are Kevin Doyle and Damien Duff. Now, Matt Doherty is one of 10 who have done so just once. So they've topped Nathan's list only once. Can you name any 2 others? List of 10 here, so plenty of potential options. But if you give me one incorrect one, I will not give you the point.
So top Irish goal scorer, another. Okay. The season before Doherty was a really bad one, wasn't it? And it was like. Okay, hang on.
You can actually hear something clicking.
Did Roy Keane get one?
Oh, it's a good answer. He's got one. He's got one.
And I think now.
Gonna need to push you here, Steve-O.
Okay.
Connie Cunningham.
It was somebody. There was. John O'Shea.
No, not John O'Shea. Can't give you the point. Phil, Adrian.
I think Jeff Hendrick might have been on it once.
Jeff Hendrick, yeah.
Yeah, that was the
year you were thinking of, the crap year before Matt Doherty, Shane Duffy.
Shane Duffy, yeah.
Kieran Clark was up there. Seamus Coleman.
Duffy had 4 that season, didn't he?
Seamus Coleman was an Irish top goal scorer.
Yeah.
Anthony Pilkington, Leon Best. We also had Ian Hart, Nicky Evans. So plenty of other options there. Roy Keane you did get, though. Round 4. And it is Adrian 1, Phil 0, Steve O'Neill. In an Irish football quiz, who would have thought we'd be in this position? But look, there'll be many an upset. Round 4, the fun free magic numbers round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right in this round. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The next closest gets 1 point. So I'm going to have to ask for your pens at the ready. And I'm also going to have to ask for your pens back once the music ends. So please can we tot up the following numbers, which are all to do with the man we missed the most in 2020, Robbie Keane. So the number of goals Robbie Keane scored for Inter Milan, plus the number of goals Robbie Keane scored for Wolves, plus the number of goals Robbie Keane scored for Coventry, plus the number of goals Robbie Keane scored for Aston Villa. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beats. So it's Inter Milan goals by Robbie Keane. These are in all competitions, by the way. The amount of Wolves goals that Robbie Keane scored, the number of Coventry goals that Robbie Keane scored, and then finally the amount of Villa goals that Robbie Keane scored. Add them all together, give me a number. 3 points on offer here. Everybody looks confused. Phil looks confident.
I just don't actually have a pen, so that's fine.
So shout out your answer first, Phil.
55.
55. Adrian?
You see that?
41.
41.
Steve-O?
3. I'm just doing my sums here.
Steve-O.
93.
93, no. It's not 93. You both went bust. Adrian gets the 2 points for being the only one who doesn't go bust. 47 points is the correct answer. Wow. Adrian Barry goes 3-0 up. The number of goals Robbie Keane has scored for Inter, Adrian?
I had 2.
3.
3, I had 3, yeah.
The number of goals he scored for Wolves?
12.
29. The number of goals he scored for Coventry?
I can see where we're going with this. 15.
12. And then 3 goals is what he scored for Aston Villa, giving you a total of 47. Phil and Steve-O both overshot the runway. Adrian, the only one who's under, which means he's on 3. The other 2 lads are on 0. And we go on to the final. The scores you get in this round will be added to your scores for the previous round. This is the rapid fire round. You all have 40 seconds to answer from the same set of questions. You get 1 point for a correct answer, and then docked 1 point for each correct answer. We'll start with the person who's in the lead. That is you, Adrian. Then onto the person in second, and after tossing a coin earlier, Steve-O, you're in second. And then onto the person in last. That's you, Phil. Unlucky Phil.
When was that coin toss, by the way?
You'd blink and you'd miss it. Adrian Barry, you are first up. 40 seconds could be all yours if you get these all right. Are you ready?
Absolutely. Bring it on. Let's do it.
Your 40 seconds starts now. Who scored Ireland's first ever goal at a major tournament?
Ray Houghton.
Correct. Who scored Ireland's most recent goal at a major tournament?
Sean St. Ledger?
No, Robbie Brady. What club is Denise O'Sullivan currently on loan at, Steve-O?
Brighton.
Correct. Who was the last Irishman not named Caoimhín Kelleher to play in the Champions League?
Darren Gibson.
No, Owen O'Connell. Chris Hughton is manager of which club, Phil?
Nottingham Forest.
Correct. Name either of Dundalk's goal scorers against Arsenal last week.
Jordan Flores.
Correct. Who scored the goal for Ireland in their 3-1 defeat to Germany in their Women's Euro qualifier this month?
Katie McCabe.
Correct. What? Oh, I just started. Did I start? I just started.
No, you didn't. No.
I just started. I've been told by the independent adjudicator in the box that I just started. So.
No!
You need to be quick with the answer.
This is bullshit. The quiz was over.
Who finished?
Type down there, will you?
This is ridiculous. The quiz was over. Come on now.
I'm disputing one of the answers anyway.
This is ridiculous. Who's giving you these what sort of Stokes, Kennedy and Crowley? This is
Robbie Brady last tournament? No.
Who finished second in last season's League of Ireland Premier Division?
This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous.
Time's up. It wasn't Shamrock Rovers.
Bohemians.
It was Bohemians.
Oh, he's lost
he's bottled it, which means he's lost the point, which means Adrian wins.
Yes.
It doesn't even go to a tie break. He's completely bottled it.
Wow. Back to last year.
Wow, I didn't see this coming.
Come here. Robbie Brady didn't score our last tournament goal, did he?
Yeah, sure. Scored a penalty against France.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking Shane Long. Yeah.
Well, Adrian, victory speech, very briefly. Our visionary.
This is just revenge for the Leinster Championship, isn't it? Westmeath doing 2 dubs at the one time.
I'm up against
I
like
would have
2
actually got the
resident
question right if I was given a chance to actually listen to it properly.
2 resident football geeks, one of whom got like an extra free throw, a shot from the free throw line at the end. I managed to throw it behind his head, and I'm just happy to be here, Owen, and the run continues.
Well, that's it. Clearly, as we can see on screen, a 22-year broken record now is gone. 1998, your last win. So congratulations on that. This has all been part of our Paddy Power special. It has been an Irish football-themed quiz. We'll see you next week here on the Crappy Quiz.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Now you're welcome along. This is Paddy Power Special this afternoon on the show, with thanks to Paddy's week-long session, a monster rollover of betting specials just for Ireland. For information on responsible gambling, you can visit gamblingcare.ie or dunlewy.net, dunlewey.net. Our guest this evening is Jermaine Pennant, who I'm sure you'll all know. 350 professional appearances, a Notts County debut at 15. He signed for Arsenal for £2 million at the age of 15. Thank you very much. Arsenal debut at 16, then a record. Played obviously in a Champions League final with Liverpool in 07 as well. Jermaine, you're very welcome. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. How has this rather strange year been for you? What have you been up to?
It's been quite easy for me. It's a lot of golf, really. I still can go to work, talk sport and other shows, so it's not really affecting me too bad. But it's not great.
Yeah, not ideal. Hopefully we're at the other end of it soon. So you've caught the golf bug. A lot of former pros do. That keeps the competitive juices going, does it?
Yeah, I've had the golf book for years now, so it's disappeared. I love my golf. We've got a 4-ball as well that we're trying to get out at least once a week. But obviously, the current climate, it's been a bit difficult recently.
How have you found media?
I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. It's something that I'm trying to push a little bit more. And obviously, my insight of playing as well, my background and the teams that I've played for, players I've played with. I feel I've got a good, some good stories to share, and yeah, I love being in front of the camera. I love talking about the game and keeping.
Just reading about you again this morning took me back to, I guess, my own teenage years. We're not a dissimilar age. I think there might be a year or so between it. But even I remember, like, back in the the days of buying Match magazines or whatever it was, like, you were such hot property as a teenager. There was kind of, Joe Coll came through, everybody knew his name. Michael Owen sort of exploded onto the scene. And then there was you you were the next big thing that even the likes of a Match magazine were talking about before you'd even made your debut. Were you aware of that at 13, 14, Notts County debut, 15? Did you know, even, I don't know, playing with England schoolboys, that you were about the best player, it seemed, of your generation at that time?
I knew, I knew I was one of the top players in my generation. And obviously, playing in my local Nottinghamshire county, there was, scouts watching, which I got told of, from 13 to 14 all the way up to 15. There was at the time, I think it was Man U, Liverpool, and Arsenal and Spurs and possibly Everton. So I knew there was teams keeping tabs on me. But you don't let that kind of, at that age, you don't really think too much into it. You just want to play football and play with your friends and play with your mates after school. You're not really, you don't really take it serious until you get a little bit older. So I did know there was a fuss when I was playing football and about my football ability.
Notts County debut at 15, and then the Arsenal move happens, as I mentioned, for £2 million for a 15-year-old. Came as a bit of a surprise to you, I understand.
Yeah, it did. It came as a big surprise. I think probably a couple of months before that, we got offered a contract, a professional contract at Notts County, and my dad turned it down. And then, out of nowhere, I'm getting shipped off to Arsenal. But I couldn't really say no because it was more I was a school kid, so it was up to my parents at the time to kind of make the decision for me. And how do you turn down Arsenal? At the time, a massive club, one of the biggest clubs in Europe at the time. So yeah, it was a great moment. But I feel, looking back, maybe I should have stayed a little bit longer in my hometown in Notts County and developed a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll pick up on that point with you in 2 seconds. We're just going to get your mic fixed. We'll be back in 1 second with Jermaine Pennant.
Yeah, no worries.
Now, sorry about that. Microphone fixed. We're back here still with Jermaine Pennant. So yeah, look, I can. It's a hell of a move to London. 15 years of age, pressure, hype, fame, money, all of that kind of stuff. That's a cocktail. In so much as you're comfortable talking about, I know you've written a very honest book. Your childhood, it's not a stable one. It's not an easy one. It's very, very difficult. You know, when you know your background, it makes the move to London seem even more drastic and more difficult for you to have been able to try and take in your stride. You might just give us a sense of the first 15 odd years.
Yeah, obviously growing up was very tough. You know, I was from a low background, a tough background. You know, we lived on a council estate, and there's a lot of crime, a lot of drugs, and gang kind of warfare. So yeah, it was difficult, but you know, growing up in that, you don't know any different. Father tried his best. Friends always kept me at arm's length if there was trouble around, because they knew of my talent, and you know, there was a way of getting out. And obviously then moving to London, you know, I did for the first 6 months, probably 9 months, I was definitely homesick, and I would come home every weekend to see friends and family. But as I got older, I started to settle in more in London, and yeah, and then hopefully, you know, I tried to make my career take off as best as possible.
What was home life like? How was your dad spending his days? What was the kind of general flow of your average day as a teenager, early teenager, or 8, 9, 10 years
well,
of age?
it would be just the norm, really. I would be, you know, go to school, then play out with your mates. It would be, you know, going to the youth club. You know, I'd always have a football, no matter where I went. If it was to the shop, anywhere I'd go, I'd a football would be in the house, neighbours, doors, fences, the lot. So yeah, it was to me it was a normal childhood. Obviously, you know, playing out with friends in school and whatnot. But obviously, the other side of it was, you know, the drugs, the crime, the gangs, and seeing that kind of happen around you. But like I said, you know, if you've grown up with that, you see it as the norm. But obviously, it's not the norm for the normal person. It's not normal. But not knowing any different, because that's what I grew into.
Yeah. In hindsight, then, when you look back, how equipped was the 15-year-old you going to London?
Very quick. I had to grow up kind of, you know, London's a very big place and it can swallow you if you let it. So I had to grow up kind of quickly. I've really, you know, grown up in my early years, kind of looked after myself to a certain degree. So I probably had that on my side to a certain point. But yeah, I did have people in London some family, so I wasn't totally alone.
Right.
So obviously that helped. But, you know, towards getting to about 17, 18, I had my own apartment.
Okay. And how was Wenger in all of this? Was he very involved in your life and checking in on you, or was it a bit more, listen, do your own thing, kid?
No, I wouldn't say he was checking in, because I was still, you know, at that point, I joined Arsenal, I was with the youth team then. So it would be more the Liam Brady would be kind of, you know, looking over me more than Arsene. It would be that kind of, because he was the head of recruitment, head of the youth policy. So it would have been Liam Brady who really had hands-on with me. Any detail, it would be Liam Brady. Any trouble, it would be Liam Brady. It would be talking to me and giving me a stern telling off. But at the same time, you know, he was a softie as well. You know, and I'm very grateful for what he did for my career at Arsenal, and, you know, always had my corner, you know, when I did come off the rails. And obviously then when you get to the first team, it's more, you've got to do with Arsene.
Liam Brady's obviously a big figure over here. I mean, legendary Arsenal player, as you obviously know, but big figure in Irish football as well. You know, such a brilliant player. Was he helping you out with your game in specific ways, showing you, you know, how he wanted you to play, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, he was obviously just telling me to be, you know, at times, you know, more positive, express. He was, you know, he knew my ability, and sometimes he would point me in the right direction. But then you also had the coaches as well. You had Don Howe.
Okay.
He was a fantastic coach. Rest in peace. Don Howe, he was a legend at Arsenal, and he was a great coach, and I learned a lot from him as well. But like I said, Liam Brady would always be watching the games, all the games, the youth team games we played in. He would always give advice as best he could. So, I always took it on board, always listened to him, because I know what of a legend he is, what a great player he was. He was a similar player on the left with his left foot. So it was great to have them kind of people around me. Hence why I probably got to where I have, because of the nurturing that I had at Arsenal with the fantastic coaches we've done now, Liam Brady, Arsenal winger, Pat Rice. So, yeah.
So you're trying to break into a pretty special team, obviously, once you start training with the senior team. This is like Invincibles territory. So, look, that's not going to be easy. How did you find that step up? How did you find training with them? How did you find that period?
The step up, training with him was fine. I knew my ability, and Arsenal wouldn't let me be in the first team change and be in the squad if he didn't feel I was up to the job. So, obviously, it's a big step up from the youth team and what you're playing. Playing with the likes of Patrick Vieira, Thierry Henry, Parlour, Lundberg, Perez, it's always going to be a big jump. But, my ability, got me there. And, I didn't look out of place for sure when I was there. But, it was hard. Sometimes it was daunting because you're playing against such, big legends and figures. And, you don't really want to mess up, I should say, or do anything bad. You try and always be on your best, especially behaviour with Patrick Vieira around. It was great, and you're only going to learn and get better by playing and training with players like that.
So if you're not pulling your weight in training, Vieira would have been on to you. Is that how it tended to work then?
Oh yeah, if you're not pulling your weight, Big Pat would have a word with you. I think at the time when I was, in the squad, Tony Adams was the captain.
Right.
So you had a lot of big personalities that would, point fingers if you wasn't, training well or your attitude was off. So you had to, every day in training was like, a test. It wasn't, we're just going training today. It was, I've got to work, I've got to do hard. Not only to impress the boss, but to impress, the likes of Tony and Patrick and Martin Kieran, because they've got Lee Dixon, they've got a big saying things, and, Arsenal did trust them as much as they trusted Arsenal.
Your debut's a bit nuts, where you score a hat-trick, that one. Not least because you're out till 6 a.m. drinking at an FHM party. I mean, geez.
I didn't plan on playing. I had no idea I was going to start or even play. So.
What age were you then?
I think I was 20, 21.
Okay.
20, 21, yeah.
Okay, so you're out till 6, and then you find out, oh no, I'm starting. Nightmare.
Absolute nightmare, yeah. So I turn up at the hotel at 11:30. We have a bit of food, and then he does his team meeting, and then when he pulls the blackboard down, the paper, and the squad's already written out. See, I thought it said Parlour at first on the right-hand side, but it said Pennant. So I done a double take, and then when I realised it was my name, my heart just sank to my stomach. I was like, no, what have I done? And I was saying to myself, I've ruined my career. How am I going to play? I'm not going to play good. I'm still hungover. I feel like crap. And I just don't know. I thought to myself, look, just get through 15 minutes and then, just say your hamstring's gone and get yourself off. But it didn't turn out like that. In fact, it turned total opposite.
Ridiculous, really. So how good, bad, indifferent a professional were you during this period? Football is definitely changing, if not changed a lot since the 90s at that stage. Diets changed, alcohol's changed.
Yeah.
Tony Adams gone through his own kind of massive change very publicly and very bravely. Yeah. So what kind of a pro were you? Like, are we talking out most of the time, drinking a lot of the time, or what was the approach?
No, not at all. Not at all. If I had a game, I would, prepare as a professional should. Right. It was just this one incident.
Yeah.
I thought, there's a party, there's a good one. I didn't want to miss it, and I thought, I'm not going to play. I made a wrong judgment call. But usually, even in reserves or the youth team, it would be, you know, at home on the Friday and preparing well for the game and, you know, getting, you know, the right food in, the carbs for the game. And yeah, but I wouldn't really go out during the week. And, you know, if we had the Sunday off, and then when you're young, the boys would go out and, you know, why not? As long as you've got a day off, there's no wrong in doing that. But I wouldn't say my professional was bad.
Right.
If I'd go out if we had days off, or if I know I wasn't playing and I went in the squad, then yeah, but I wouldn't do it when I know I had an important game or a game.
Okay, so would it be wrong of me to, from afar, I think that a lack of professionalism was the reason the breakthrough at Arsenal didn't happen? That isn't what happened in your view?
No, I don't think it was a lack of professional at all. I think it was, you know, back then there wasn't many in the league, you know, young English players getting a chance. You know, it was kind of not unheard of young talent coming through. It was, you know, a lot of foreign boys or established English players. Teams didn't really do that. And me being at the Invincibles, when you've got the likes of Parlour ahead of you, Longberg, and you've got on the other side Perez and Overmars, it was always going to be difficult. You know, if it was this era now where you see teams fielding a lot of young English players, like for instance Arsenal now, they've got a lot of young English talent which are getting a chance. But I can tell you now, if this team, Arsenal talent, tried to break in the Invincible era, it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened. So I wouldn't say it was a lack of professionalism, because, you know, I've had the conversation with Arsenal and they were saying you're doing well and keep going. But it's just English players wasn't getting that chance at that time, especially young ones. And the team that was in front of me was remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to remember. I mean, Rooney certainly got his chance. United gave young English talent their chance. But I do take your point about how good that Arsenal team was.
Yeah.
That's not easy to break into.
Yeah, obviously, you know, Everton got his chance. Rooney got a chance at Everton, but the contrasting teams then, Everton and Arsenal was huge. You know, maybe if I was at a lesser, you know, a lesser team maybe, but I got an earlier chance. And you know, being there since 16 and then not getting my chance until I was 21 probably did take its toll on me. And, you know, I was getting a lot of frustration. I went out on loan multiple times, done well, came back and still didn't get my chance. So frustration did kick in. And then, yeah, maybe my attitude in training sometimes would be off because I was frustrated and I didn't know how to deal with it.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah. So, I mean, 5 years, when you put it like that, it's a long time kicking your heels. Were you happy enough then to make a move away properly to try and get some game time?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed going on loan. First one was Watford, on 2 occasions, and the third was Leeds for the full year of the Premier League, and it was fantastic. And then to go back to Arsenal, then to be in the back seat again, after having the taste of the Premier League, playing week in, week out, being a kind of a star player at Leeds United at the time as well. It was hard. And then, you know, that's when the attitude and the frustration started kicking and started sulking rather than being, you know, running out there and trying harder and harder. I started to sulk because all I wanted to do was play. So, yeah, there's a lot of factors that probably hindered my time at Arsenal.
Yeah. So what's a Jermaine Pennant sulk then? Go out, long face on you, kick a few balls away, that kind of stuff?
No, just what you know, just sulking, just not give it probably 100% in training because I know I'm not involved in the squad or I'm not going to be playing. So I'm thinking, you know, what's the point? Why am I bothering? Why am I here? That kind of, you know, attitude and childish. You know, I was young, and I just thought I'm not getting my chance. So I just thought I was going through the motions.
It seems Steve Bruce managed to get a tune out of you and seemed to connect with you, and you played some of your best stuff with him. I think you had 36 and then 38 Premier League appearances in 2 of the 3 years there, and it got you to move to Liverpool. So a place like Birmingham seemed to suit you.
Yeah, it did. Well, you know, Steve Bruce, I'll always take my hat off to him. I think is a fantastic guy and a great manager. And the thing about with Steve, he played me every week, no matter how I was, you know, any misdemeanors or any stories in the paper, or if I did anything wrong, he would put me on the team sheet because he knew I'd give him 110%, where it mattered on the pitch, where he needed me most. So he always believed in me, and I always thought, you know, I'm going to repay him on the pitch. You know, sometimes in training, sometimes you're not feeling great and you're not performing fantastic. And, you know, some managers will look at that and not play you just because you didn't have a great training session or a couple of great training sessions. Sometimes, you know, things going on in your life where, you know, you're not on song, you're not 100%, but when it comes match day, you are. And I feel that's where it matters, and that's where Steve saw me where it matters. If I wasn't performing on the pitch, then maybe, you know, he wouldn't have picked me as much as he did, but I did perform for him, and I was one of his top performers, and, you know, I'm very grateful for that. And that's, I feel, with me, I think that's what got the best out of me, rather than kind of punishing me. He believed in me and put his arm around me when I thought, okay, I'll give you 110% on the pitch.
How often were the misdemeanours? How often was Steve Bruce having to go, oh, geez, Jermaine, look what's in the papers today?
No, not often. It was probably, you know, a handful of times over the years, but it wasn't, like I said, I was never a bad apple in the changing room. I was never bad around the ground. I was always a joker. I was always, you know, putting smiles on people's faces. I was never, you know, one of them players where, oh, don't get him in your team because he would disrupt it. I've never been like that. It was just, you know, probably being spotted coming out of a nightclub at 3 a.m. where you're supposed to be a role model and a professional, you know, them kind of stories. But, you know, I was young. If we had a day off, like I said, I would go out. Obviously, it's changed now because there's a lot more spotlight. There's camera phones, there's social media, where it wasn't that as bad in my time as bad. So obviously, you know, now people have got to be very careful, where back then I was just obviously coming from where I came from. I just saw myself as another human being, but just played football. And obviously I made headlines more than others.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, it's amazing how much it has changed in terms of players coming out of nightclubs, and just even alcohol is a thing, which is the players, most of them don't even seem to drink these days. It's amazing the change which has happened. So, like, if, for instance, I guess a point where it looked like your career could be in major trouble was the drink driving situation in February 04, and then January, when you were still serving the ban from 04, you got caught again, and it was jail time, and it was electronic tag on the pitch and those photos. What was going on in your life then that you were getting caught up in you know, such stupid situations, considering you had the winning lottery ticket to life, you know, to be risking it all? What was going on in your life then, Jermaine?
Again, that was the first two times was when I was at Arsenal, and it was on the last one after I before I got the time was I went on loan to Birmingham, and when I came out I got sold to Birmingham. Right. And it was a build-up again of a lot of frustration of not being able to play. People don't understand the effect that it has on players when, you know, you want to showcase your craft and you can't do it. You're not getting that opportunity, and after time it builds up, and you think sod it, and you make decisions that you wouldn't do if you was playing on a regular basis or you was involved. Hence, you get yourself into trouble, and emotionally and mentally, it's hard sometimes to deal with when you're not being able to play football. When that's all I've known, and that's all I wanted to do, and that's what I thought I was great at. So, you know, and not having, you know, the right people around you as well, you know, also plays a factor. I didn't have my family, so, you know, I didn't have really anyone to stop me from making these bad decisions when I was frustrated and lonely and upset. And obviously, like I said, you go out, you want to just, you know, people deal with things certain ways to get over things. I dealt with it by going out with friends and, you know, not thinking about it and having a good time. And obviously, remotely, that got me into trouble.
And is there anyone, maybe it's Bruce, maybe it's someone at Arsenal, I don't know, does anyone sit you down and say, here, listen, well, one, like, obviously, and I know you've said this in the past, so I'm, you know, this is a really dumb thing to do, like you're endangering other people. It's a really serious thing to do. People have lost loved ones because of drink driving. So there's that. Yeah. But also, like, dude, you're throwing this away. You've got to get a hold of yourself here. Does anyone try and have that chat with you?
No, not really.
I find that insane. Like, if it was today, like, honestly, you'd be put in therapy. Like, it'd be a real, the club would get around you, I think, in a massive way.
Yeah, I feel now there's more of that. There's definitely more of that now in mental health, because that's more, you know, that's came to the light of the game in males, and, you know, it's spoke about a lot more now. And I feel now clubs do I have people, therapists who the players can speak to if things ain't going well. But back then, it wasn't really heard of, wasn't really spoken of.
Right.
Once you leave the training ground and the game, you know, you basically on your own. So, like I said, the game's evolved in many different ways. Like I said, with fitness, with food, with therapists, with people at the ground, the way they look after the players now. But back then, it was a little bit, you know, distant. So it was more to deal. You had to deal with it on your own.
I saw in your book you had the line MX7232. I don't think I'll ever forget it. Prison did change me. What is the experience of going into prison as a Premier League footballer? I mean, not easy, I would think. Terrifying, I would think.
No. Yeah, it was terrifying because I had no idea what was awaiting me. You know, you watch your films and you know you have you judge it on that.
Yeah,
it's not good. No, but it's a lack of, you know, you feel your freedom's gone when it has gone, and you just, you know, the little things that you used to take for granted, you know, come straight to the forefront of your mind. And, you know, you're sitting there telling yourself, what an idiot, what have you done? You know, you're in a great position, and, you know, why? You start asking questions, why? And then, you know, when I was there, I was writing letters to people, to friends, to family, to people who I've upset. And, you know, you have a lot of time and a lot of thoughts run through your head. And it's a very lonely place. And, you know, I wish it upon no one to go through that. Yeah, so it's not a thing that I'd like to revisit.
No, I can imagine.
Put it that way.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what was in the letters? Apologising?
It was just, you know, because I know, you know, my family and my grandma was upset, very upset with the news. And, you know, she's old. And so I wrote my grandma just, you know, apologising and tell her to stay strong and don't worry, everything will be fine, you know, just to reassurance. You know, my partner at the time, you know, she obviously going to have to go through hell with the press and her hearing that. So, you know, fans were writing in and I was writing back. Like I said, it was just you know, you get a lot of time to yourself. So you do, a lot of things come to the forefront in your mind, the things that you used to take for granted.
How were the fellow inmates with you?
They're fine. You know, I think I was in the press for a full week, every single day, front and back pages. So there was all coming up to me asking for autographs, you know, to sign the newspapers, which I thought was, you know, a bit weird. I thought, well, you know, that is what it is. And I guess that they're not used to, you know, my caliber of people going in there and seeing them. They're used to the proper criminals and whatnot. So I guess it was a shock to them as much as it was for me.
What effect do you think it had on you as a person, the whole experience?
Obviously, it definitely made me grow up and you know, appreciate things more, for sure. You know, like I said, being in there, you do think about a lot of things, and even small things that we take for granted in life. It definitely made me think about that more, and, you know, wanting to come out and, you know, cherish my career and try and do the best I could. And I did. I came out, done well at Birmingham, and got my move to my dream club, which, you know, not many people say that they've lived one of their dreams.
Yeah, and I mean, that is a hell of an achievement, because bloody hell, you were odds against it around 2005 of that happening, you know, given everything you were going through. So Birmingham, it goes well. You talked about the influence Steve Bruce had on you. Were you in any way tempted to turn down Liverpool because I had a good thing going here at Birmingham, or was it like, as soon as the offer comes in, I'm gone?
No. Yeah, as soon as I heard about the offer, then, you know, it was my boyhood team. It's the team that I supported growing up as a kid.
Right.
And there was no chance I could turn that down. You know, I even turned down a move when I was at Arsenal to Everton because I wanted to play for Liverpool.
Right.
And my agent said, if you do play for Everton, you won't be able to play for Liverpool. So, you know, when that chance did come, I was thrilled and over the moon.
First season seemed to go really well. Played lots of games, Champions League final. How was Rafa Benitez?
I mean, it was totally different to Steve Bruce, put it that way.
A more distant manager, really, I think.
Yeah, he's a distant manager. He's not a manager you can go up to, really, and feel like you can knock on his door and have a heart-to-heart. He keeps himself to himself, and, you know, his attributes are more on the pitch, tactics, stuff like that. But I wouldn't say he's the best man manager I've had, and I feel maybe he could have possibly sat me down and spoke more what he wanted, because there was time when I wasn't playing, I was getting frustrated, but he gave me no reason or no idea why. And I feel like I should have been playing. The reason why the second season I didn't really play too many games was because after the Champions League final, I had a stress fracture in my shin, and we had surgery and I was out for 3 months, and then kind of came back in January, which we rushed it a little bit, a game against Wigan. And then ever since then, it was kind of hard to get back in.
Right. It wouldn't strike me Benitez's football at Liverpool as the most exciting brand of football. How did a player like you find it?
What's that? You don't feel it was the most exciting?
Yeah, just more of a defensive slant to it than an all-out attacking slant. Like, obviously, there's great attacking players and they scored goals, obviously, but, like, I'm sure you were doing your fair share of tracking back.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel when I was playing for him at times, on his side especially, he was more controlling me, telling me where to run, where to go, where to pass, where, I said a quote in the paper that sometimes it felt like I was a robot, because he was telling me, what to do, how to do it, rather than let me express my skill and do what I do and influence the game. And then obviously when I told the press that, they put us a story out, my face on Robocop's body. And said, which didn't go down too well.
No kidding. Sorry, I didn't realise you'd said that when you were still a player for Rafa.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah, to Rafa. Sorry, and
well, that's game over.
Yeah, but no, I said that sometimes I just want to be expressive. I'm an attacking player.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I get giving me instructions, but when I've got the ball, don't be telling me where to pass, how to pass it. I see the game, and that's that. So it was a little bit frustrating. Like some of the players who say, I can't wait till second half when he's not on my side.
I can see for a player like you who might sense, well, I've got the beating of this player in front of me and I want to take him on because I can sense, body shapes and the way it's laid out in front of me. This is the right thing to do. And yet if you're being told, well, I have to pass into that channel, that's not going to really sit well with a player like you. It's not that one's wrong, one's right. Like Rafa was very successure, but it's different styles for sure.
Yeah, and I get it. Look, sometimes he might see something that we can't because we're focusing on the ball and the game and the man, and he's got a bigger picture because he don't have to worry about where the ball is going to get passed to. So he can. I get it. He sees more of that. But not every single time I get the ball, I'm hearing Rafa shouting in my ear roll. And I just thought, just let me play sometimes. Just let me, if I've got to beat another man, you don't worry about anything else apart from me getting past this guy, which, most times it worked. But, just a sense of freedom. That's all it was. And, it's Rafa for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like the theme across your career is if you're not playing football, frustration kicks in very, very quickly and you start doing silly things and you just get unhappy, it gets on top of you. So
that's 100%.
You never quite get around, you never quite get past that. Like you're still the same as the 19-year-old who's frustrated even in your late 20s.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's only to my later stages of my career where, you just got to just deal with it. You got to man up, you got to suck it up.
Yeah.
You just got to keep training hard and giving the manager no excuses not to pick you. Because the thing that I struggle with is that why would you jeopardise a team? If you've got a player who can do better than the player you've got in there, just because he can run around and train a lot more, if you've got a player who can do better on the pitch, why would you jeopardise your team? So I kind of couldn't get my head around that, especially when you're hearing the crowds, shouting, get him on, and then you see forums that why isn't Pennant playing, is better than this, is better than that. And it kind of just like, I said, yeah, you ask yourself why? And, you start taking it personal. And then that's when, you kind of start falling off the rails.
Yeah, because, it's interesting to talk to you and get a feel for you as a person, because obviously it's only through the media that we get to know you. So, electronic tag stuff or not coming through the Arsenal, you think something's off, and even like you'll pop up randomly then in a headline because you've left your Porsche at a train station for 5 months in Zaragoza, and you're kind of looking at you from afar going, this entitled, pampered Premier League footballer, what is going on with this fella?
Yeah. Well, half of me, the stuff you shouldn't believe anyway.
Okay.
You know, they're out for themselves, and you know what they really write about me, and actually me in person are two different people. You know, I never left my Porsche, but that's not a story. So they made it into a story. I knew it was there. I just didn't have time to go back because I signed for Stoke City on transfer deadline day. And I had to leave it at the airport, train station to get to the airport. So I didn't really have time to go back. Okay. And I left it there a few months and got a friend to pick it up for me instead. That's, you know, I was finding a place to live, finding my feet at Stoke. We had games, it was winter. So, you know, games come thick and fast. I just didn't really have time.
Yeah, it's a bit different to forgot he had a Porsche.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, you know, it's easy. It's very easy to get a bad boy label and be tagged the bad boy, and it's very easy to get that, but it's very difficult to get rid of it. So, you know, the papers will jump on and target you for any slight issue. With, you know, there's players out there probably done a lot more than me, but it's not been in the front headlines. It's not had a horrible headline. They've not made it an issue. But like I said, when you've got that label, that bad boy image, it's more of a story.
Yeah, and like, look, geez, we've never met. I don't know you. I wasn't there for your career. So maybe the way of putting the question is, if you had to hold your hands up, you know, and say, I got to take responsibility for X, Y, and Z. What are the things that in a perfect world wouldn't have happened? You could have done better in your career.
Oh, 100%. Like, look, you know, I'm human. I'm young. I didn't have a great background, so the profession, you know, all that wasn't really there. That structure that most kids have with their parents and family. So I didn't really have that. So that was always going to play a part in me growing up, for my childhood. And I would take full responsibility of my mistakes. And, you know, the drink driving, you know, it was my fault. No one else's. I was the one who got in the car. So that's all down to me, and that's probably my biggest regret.
Right.
Them two issues, because I feel if it wasn't for that, I would have played for England. But obviously, having that at the time on your record, you know, it was difficult to get in the England squad. So, and who knows where I could have gone on from if them incidents didn't happen. Maybe I would have stayed at Arsenal and played more. So yeah, they're the probably biggest two regrets of my career in life. The drink driving offence.
I guess life is complicated, you know. We're all a result of the experiences we go through, and it could have easily gone, you know, in a terrible way, and it didn't. Like, you know, we are talking about 350 professional games. We are talking about Champions League final. You know, lots of kind of highs in there as well. So sorry if I'm making it sound like it all went kind of awry. It's a really complicated career in that way. Do you look at it more as you know, I did really well given what a tough place I came from, and 15 years of age, 2 million quid chucked into Arsenal. I actually did really well not to almost kind of blow the whole thing up completely? Or do you feel a bit more, unfulfilled potential maybe, you know, could have been so much better maybe? Where do you fall down on it now? Because you have to live with it.
I feel, you know, I look back on my career and I feel I've had a successful one.
Yeah.
And just from where I came from, that alone is successful. Going in prison, a stint in prison, you know, after that, not many players, if any, you know, ever get the opportunity to go on and do what I did after that.
Yeah.
You know, so that alone, I've got to, you know, be very thankful and grateful and lucky to come out of prison and then go into play with one of the top 4 clubs in the world, which is probably, you know, if that would happen now, I think it'll be unheard of. So on the back of that, I've got to say, you know, everything happens for a reason. And, you know, I got to play for Liverpool and that was my dream and I fulfilled it. So I've got to say, you know, I've had a good career. So what's happened to me, where I've been from, I've got to say I'm very lucky and, you know, a successful one. So, you know, can't really be too hard on myself. Yes, things could have been probably a little bit better, but, you know, we all probably could have done better in some way and got on to bigger and better. But I'm very happy with the way things turn out.
Yeah, no, for sure. What is a Champions League final like to play in? I presume an unbelievable experience.
Oh, it's a great experience. It's not the actual game. It's the old build-up to the final. Seeing the fans pour in when you go into the stadium and the noise. The Champions League theme tune. It's just the whole experience, and then when as soon as that whistle goes, it's just like another game. But obviously, it's the more the build-up, and it's the best feeling that a professional footballing club domestic football can get. It's the highest one. So, to say that I've had a taste of playing in the final, again, only the elite English players have probably played in the Champions League final. And like I say, I've done that. So, I can't be too hard on myself again. And, on that front there, it's just I've had a good career. But playing the Champions League final is a fantastic experience. And, every player would want to do it.
I can imagine. So what does the future hold? Is it more media? Have you given management any thought, or is it all TBC?
Well, not after seeing all you've got a Solskjaer stick he gets. So I don't think managers for me.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
It's not. Yeah, it's definitely not easy. I don't think managing would be for me. I think I'll be a good one. I think I'll be a player's manager. But no, it's definitely a tough job, tough ask that. So I enjoy media.
Right.
And there's more doors open in that kind of direction. And fingers crossed, I get more opportunities. But I enjoy speaking. I enjoy TV. Obviously, I love football. Got a good knowledge of it. So fingers crossed, I can continue and do well in that.
Okay. Well, listen, Jermaine Pennant, the very best of luck with it. I'm sure you'll do very well. Thanks so much for the time. Really interesting chat, and might check in again sometime. Thanks a million.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Take care.
Thank you. That is Jermaine Pennant, and that was our Paddy Power special, with thanks to Paddy's week-long session, a monster rollover of betting specials just for Ireland. For information on responsible gambling, visit gamblingcare.ie or dunlewy.net, dunlewey.net.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. New normal, same old football. Paddy Power. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.